Chapter 1237. After she woke up, the water immortal explained her situation in a few words. At least, at the moment when she woke up, she didn't feel too regretful. In the end, someone survived in the innumerable mountains. Furthermore, he had lived for 100,000 years. Putting away the lotus petals, Han Fei asked, "Teacher, why are there only 1,000 mountains left in the 100,000 mountains?" The water immortal said softly, "Don't call me teacher. I'm old. I slept for 80,000 years, but it doesn't mean I'm over 100,000 years old. I'm actually only 20,000 years old. Call me sister." Han Fei was confused. "You've slept for 80,000 years. Why are you still so naughty? You're 20,000 years old and you want me to call you sister? I'm only in my 20s. The water immortal said, "The 100,000 mountains couldn't stop them. About 1,000 years after you left, the 100,000 mountains joined hands with the City of Justice to fight against the sea monsters again." But what? The water immortal said, "You should know about the Immortal Palace, right?" Han Fei nodded. "Yes." The water immortal said, "Little Ling Lan found the thing you mentioned, the floating stone. However, the appearance of the floating stone intensified the war. The most direct manifestation was that the sea monsters went crazy. The Beast King tried to pass the King's tribulation to resist the sea monsters. At that time, me, the Heavenly Crystal, the Giant King, the Divine Sun, and Little Ling Lan didn't dare to leave. Unfortunately, they still took advantage of the situation. The Giant King died on the spot. The Heavenly Crystal killed everyone but was killed by a king." "A king?" Han Fei asked in surprise. "A king took action." The water immortal nodded. "That's when we found out. There was a group of even stronger experts fighting outside. They were stronger, and the number of venerables they led was also greater. The Beast King passed the tribulation successfully. The Giant King and the Heavenly Crystal died on the spot. I was responsible for cleaning the sea area, so nothing happened. Little Ling Lan was seriously injured and was saved by a strong master. The Divine Sun stopped the king alone and went missing." Shocked, Han Fei quickly asked, "What happened next?" The water immortal looked at Han Fei deeply. "Later, although we found the floating stone, we didn't have enough. Because the Beast King became a king, the sea monsters sent king-level masters. The Beast King had no choice but to go east and take away the other king. He never came back. I'm the only one left to guard the 100,000 mountains." Han Fei took a deep breath. He didn't know this part of history at all. However, according to Water Fairy's description, the situation must have been very difficult. Han Fei's voice was slightly hoarse. "Where's Shiman Ling Lan?" Water Immortal sighed and said, "Little Ling Lan was ambushed by the sea monsters during a battle for the floating stone and died. When Little Ling Lan died, I was also surrounded and heavily injured." Han Fei knew that this was the battle that destroyed the City of Justice. He could not help but frown. Where is the Immortal Palace? Han Fei couldn't help but wonder. According to the time dragon Carp, his old body was born 100,000 years ago. That was when he had just arrived at U City. In other words, there were already immortal palaces at that time. However, there seemed to be something wrong with the Immortal Palace at that time, right? The scene of old Han wielding a knife and staining the bed with blood was still vivid in his mind. Could it be that, after a few thousand years, the Immortal Palace had changed again? Also, did the 100,000 mountains belong to the Yin-Yang Heaven or the Waterwood Heaven? After all, it should have been his mother's statue standing in the city of Yu. Han Fei couldn't help but ask, did the sea god take action in the Immortal Palace? Water Immortal shook her head. No, no one has seen the sea god. At that time, we saw a strong master in the Immortal Palace leading a group of venerable puppet corpses. Han Fei thought to himself, sure enough, as I expected. At that time, something had already happened to my mother. Han Fei pondered for a moment. So that's how it is. However, Water Immortal chuckled. Don't overestimate the immortal palace. More than 10,000 years later, about 20,000 years later, I had already become a king. During one of the expeditions, the 100,000 mountains and the City of Justice were beaten to the point where the earth veins were damaged and split apart. I forcibly accommodated 1,000 mountains, which was already my limit. It was also at that time that I was seriously injured and fell into a deep sleep. However, during my deep sleep, I woke up once. Han Fei suddenly raised his head. "Huh?" Water Immortal chuckled. "Who gave you the spring of life?" Han Fei widened his eyes and said, "The Life Queen, the King, and the Master of the Waterwood Sky." Water Immortal said with a faint smile, "My disciple, your junior sister, is a peerless heavenly talent. When I was sleeping, she woke me up." Pooh! Han Fei almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He felt that his head was buzzing. "Fuck, I didn't do anything. I just crossed the river of time and found a master, but now I have a junior sister who is a king." No wonder the nine-headed snake grass called her Little Flower. He thought to himself, who is Little Flower? Now it seems that she must be the Life Queen. That's right. If it weren't for the Life Queen, Water Immortal wouldn't have been able to live until now. Gulp. Han Fei couldn't help but swallow. This relationship is too fucking outrageous. Should I fucking acknowledge this senior sister relationship? Or not? If I do, will I be slapped to death by the Life Queen? Han Fei couldn't help but ask, "Well, can I acknowledge them as sisters?" Water Immortal chuckled. "It's up to you. Little Flower should be a good girl." No, is Little Flower her nickname? Water Immortal said, "Yes. Her real name is Mu Wuhua, a fig tree." Han Fei really wanted to ride on her coattails. He couldn't help but ask, "Well, does my junior sister know me?" Water Immortal said, "She knows that she has a senior brother, but she doesn't know who he is." "I didn't tell her your story. Back then, I asked her if humans were living in the sky now. She said that they live in trees. I thought to myself, maybe it's not your time yet, so I didn't tell her." Han Fei's lips twitched, and he scratched his head. "They live in trees now too." Huh? Water Immortal was stunned for a moment. Why do they still live in trees? Han Fei thought to himself, how can I explain it to you? He said, "Well, it's complicated. I can only say that the lifestyles of different palaces are different." Water Immortal nodded slightly, not particularly curious. They continued to chat for about half an hour, when Water Immortal suddenly frowned. "There are strong experts among the sea demons. Someone just killed the ice snake vine." Then, the water deity looked at Han Fei. "Enough chit-chat. Help me kill those sea demons. Also, do you want these materials that have already withered?" Han Fei thought for a moment. "Not for now. Now, except for weapons and materials above the sea-quelling bizarre treasure level, I don't lack anything else. Master, I'll go first. However, I won't kill all these sea demons. I need to let some of them out to cooperate with me." Han Fei turned back into the appearance of the Fish Dragon King. Because he used the art of deception and the Beast King technique just now, he didn't use the art of evolution. Therefore, at this moment, he was still a sea demon in essence. "Huh?" Water Immortal said in surprise, "Why do I feel that you are a sea demon?" Han Fei grinned. "I have a great technique that can completely transform into a sea demon or even a mermaid." Water Immortal certainly wouldn't doubt it. Otherwise, Han Fei wouldn't have given up such a huge amount of resources to save himself. Mu Wuhua wouldn't have given him so much spring of life. Water Immortal said, "Go. The sooner you find my real body, the better it will be for you. I don't know how my real body is now. But for you, it's definitely a huge opportunity. Besides, I, the original owner, will help you. It will be of great help to your growth." Han Fei grinned. "Got it." Then Han Fei patted one of the snake heads of the nine-headed snake grass. I'm going to kill the rest of the sea demons first. Now that the water immortal was alive, Han Fei felt much better. When he first heard from the heavenly vine that water immortal was still alive, he was very nervous and excited. He thought, in this world, only demonic plants can live for 100,000 years without dying. Oh, no, there are also turtles. Han Fei thought, apart from the ordinary turtles, most of the turtles I've encountered are extraordinary. For example, the rock-holding turtle carried the sea-quelling bizarre treasure and taught the god-scaring painting. For example, the old turtle on the Scattered Stars Island carried the corpse of a king. For example, the old turtle, the primitive emperor, had become an emperor. How terrifying was that? At this moment, the old turtle said, if what she said is true, then this is really a great opportunity for you. The demon plant focuses on the body. She has given up the body of the great Tao, which is undoubtedly a shocking treasure to you. Such a fortuitous encounter can be considered a top-notch fortuitous encounter in the vast ocean. Han Fei smiled. You still expect me to grow stronger after I get it? The old turtle said lightly, I've accepted it. A person like you will either fall or become a first-rate demon. I can help you grow. By then, I have my own means, and you won't kill me. Han Fei grinned. Then we'll see. Outside the Divine Child Peak, Han Fei stood proudly in the void, his perception sweeping around. After a while, his eyes focused on a mountain not far away. There was a blood demon fighting with a world-shaking bellflower, and the sound of the bell rumbled in all directions. Han Fei roared at the sky and secretly activated the soul-suppressing roar of beasts. His voice covered more than 3,000 kilometers. Han Fei roared, how dare you ambush me, slaughter my subordinates, and ruin the lives of many people from the Baibei royal city. Today, I'll fight to the death with your blood sea divine wood city. Climax. Chapter 1238. Who is the Dragon King? Who is so shameless as to call himself the Dragon King? The birds and bugs in Shui Mutian began to buzz again. Of course, they had seen the fish Dragon King, so they could probably guess who it was. Only Shu Xiaoman was shocked. How long has it been? Those more than 1,000 people have already died. Suddenly, Shu Xiaoman's body stiffened. This was incredible. She admitted that Han Fei was very powerful, but didn't Han Fei need energy to fight? Didn't he need spiritual energy? That was not more than 100 people, but 1,000 or even hundreds of people. As for why Shu Xiaoman thought it was Han Fei when the fish Dragon King shouted, what a joke. Han Fei had been beside the fish Dragon King and said hello to her. Now, Han Fei could kill more than 1,000 people. He had been with the fish Dragon King for so long in disguise. How could the fish Dragon King still be alive? Shu Xiaoman didn't believe it. She felt that, not to mention Han Fei's unpredictable speed and strength, the disguise technique that could even fool a venerable was enough to make her blood freeze. It was like, you hang out with your friends all day long, but the friend you thought was a siren. How scary would that be? When the words, I'm the Dragon King, appeared, Shu Xiaoman knew that this person was Han Fei. There was no doubt about it. The sea demons were all dumbfounded. They didn't know what had happened. Yu Hong and Shui Hongyan, who were familiar with the fish Dragon King, had been killed by him. There was no one here who had come from King City. Even if these two people were not dead yet, what was the fish Dragon King's character? Arrogant, conceited, and petty. Han Fei's performance of I'm the Dragon King was absolutely perfect. On the other hand, within the mountains, there was a person whose expression sank. He frowned as he listened to the words that were floating in the air. If Han Fei were here, he would be surprised. Isn't this Yu Keiling? Why hasn't she died yet? To Han Fei's surprise, Lan Shuer, who he thought had died long ago, was sitting cross-legged and recovering at this moment. And Yu Keiling's face was dark at this moment. The fish Dragon King is still alive? So, is Yu Hanjia dead or still alive? That's right, at the last moment, he made a move with the intention of saving the people and killing the traitor. In the end, he was confused by the strange melody, and at the last moment, he seemed to see Yuhanjia making a move. In the end, if he hadn't fought fiercely and released his spiritual beast, he would have died. Yu Kailing felt that the chances of Yuhanjia surviving were not high. At that time, he should have been in a similar situation as him. If he didn't have any special methods, he shouldn't have survived. He was the one who had discovered that person. He had invited him to join the patrol team and had been selected along with him. At first, Yu Kailing thought that the Fish Dragon King had also fallen. After all, that strange demonic sound was simply impossible to guard against. It was as if it could evoke the desire in one's heart, and one would unknowingly fall into an illusion. The sudden appearance of the Ichthyosaur King had informed the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm in such a furious manner. It could be seen how furious he was. However, Yu Kailing did not intend to continue following the Ichthyosaur King. This person was arrogant, conceited, and indifferent. He was not worth following. On the sea demon's side, many people were stunned. When they came in, these sea demons actually knew 3 names. The Ichthyosaur King, Yu Hong, Shui Hong Yan. Among them, the Ichthyosaur King had the highest status. He was the heavenly talent of the royal city and the most distinguished person on this trip. At this moment, he was forced to such an extent by a group of blood demons. Immediately, a sea demon took a deep breath. Something big has happened. It seems that something big has happened. Someone sneered. What did I say before? That kind of extremely terrifying fortuitous encounter must not be fought for. Do you see it now? The strongest prodigy on our side is already enraged to such an extent. You can see how badly he has been tricked. Someone said, then, should we go over and help him? These people were all speechless. Someone said, is there something wrong with your brain? How could he be so angry? Take a guess, how many people have fallen? Think about it again. If the Ichthyosaur King could suffer such a loss, do you think those blood demons are easy to deal with? Everyone shook their heads. That person said, that's it. Anyway, I don't want to die. I'm here to seek opportunities. As for the blood demons, many people were dumbfounded. Wait, what's going on here? What kind of people did they kill? How many people did they kill? How could he be so crazy? Yang Ruoyun, who was reclaiming a mountain, asked her companions, has it been a day since we came in? Her companions said, I don't think so. Looking at the time, it has been almost 16 hours. Yang Ruoyun held 2 blades that looked like moons and looked in the direction of the Divine Child Peak. She said slowly, something doesn't seem right. The spiritual chi and the light mist have been gone for a long time. Why are there so few people now? Why are there so few places where there are battles? Someone said, maybe it's because the distance is too far. After all, we are walking on the edge, not the center at all. Yang Ruoyun shook her head. Something is wrong. It's too quiet. We don't even feel the void tremble. Also, one thing is very obvious. There are so many mountains in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm and countless demonic plants. If we don't deliberately hunt the special creatures that are still alive, it's actually not very dangerous. However, we've passed 7 mountains nearby, right? Apart from encountering 2 sea monsters and 3 insects, I didn't encounter anyone else. Yang Ruoyun said, let's go. Everyone, follow me back and leave the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Huh? Someone was confused and asked in surprise, Ruoyun, everything is going well for us. Why are we leaving? Yang Ruoyun said, you can have many opportunities, but you only have 1 life. I don't feel right. If you want to continue, I'll go back by myself. Ever since he became the Fish Dragon King, Han Fei felt refreshed. He scanned with his senses and found that there were 5 half-mermaid sea demons 800 kilometers away in a mine at the bottom of the sea. It seemed that they had just been through a battle. 2 of them were wounded and fled here. Inside the mine. A sea demon said solemnly, "Thank you for your warning, Master Dragon King. Otherwise, the consequences would be unimaginable." Someone looked at the soil that was being turned over and said, "What should we do? We can't stay here for long. Otherwise, the undead creatures would come out from all directions. By then, we won't be able to escape." Someone shouted in a low voice, "We have to go back and run to the entrance." "Huh, who's there?" Suddenly, they all looked around and scanned with their senses. They were surprised at first, then pleasantly surprised. Someone said in surprise, "Master Dragon King. It seems that he's found us." Swish. Han Fei used the star teleportation technique. He wanted to use the closed distance technique, but he didn't know how to. It seemed that the closed distance technique was the Fish Dragon King's law enforcement ability. Of course. Now, Han Fei certainly wouldn't ask the Fish Dragon King. Just for these small fries? It wasn't worth his time. More than 200 kilometers were covered in the blink of an eye. Han Fei stood in the mine, looked at them, and suddenly roared, "Son of a bitch, everyone." Han Fei suddenly roared, which stunned the 5 of them. Were they ambushed again? By the time the 5 people realized that they were in a life-and-death crisis, it was already too late. In the end, the void lines tightened around them, and they found that they could no longer move. In the next moment, Han Fei said, "You've committed the most heinous crimes. The battle ahead is fierce, and you're running away. You're a disgrace to the sea demons. Today, I'll grant you a glorious return." Pooh. 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 After killing these people, Han Fei flashed out of the mine and said casually to the void, "Teacher, you can keep the resources for yourself if there are any. I'll have plenty of opportunities when I get out." In the void, a voice responded, "Call me sister." Han Fei's strategy was actually very simple. When he came here, he went straight to the Divine Child Peak after learning from the Heavenly Vine that the Water Fairy was still alive. At this moment, the Water Fairy also saw him, and a lot of his questions were answered. He wanted to give all the resources in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm to the Water Fairy. So, Han Fei went straight to the exit without hesitation. At the same time, he said, "Teacher, can you control the undead creatures? Force them to the entrance." The Water Fairy nodded. "Yes." Then, Han Fei roared at the sky, "Everyone from the Baibei Royal City, gather at the exit. Today, I'm going to block the road and kill everyone. Those who don't come will be killed." At the same time, many sea demons and blood demons who were fighting with the Water Fairy all stopped fighting. Mainly because the human beings stopped fighting. Shu Xiaoman roared, "Let's go. We can't lose the entrance. If the entrance closes, we'll be trapped here." A large bird flew beside Shu Xiaoman. "Shouldn't we sit back and reap the benefits?" A human being soared into the sky and shot an arrow at a half-mermaid. "Yes, Xiaoman, if they want to fight, let them fight. Isn't that a good idea?" Shu Xiaoman shook her head. "No, I have my own plans." A centipede crawled in the air very fast and reached them in the blink of an eye. "Let's go. Anyway, the mountain behind has been occupied by Han Fei. As for the rest of the sea demons and blood demons, their number is about the same as ours, right?" "Aw. Insectide." Suddenly, a bug shrieked, and everybody looked at it. Because in his perception, there was an overwhelming black mass of undying bug race. He had no idea where they came from. In any case, they just appeared. A bug exclaimed, "Wow, the real danger of the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm is the insect tide." Chirp. Chirp. Not only the insect tide, but countless undead birds also flew across the sky, blocking the sun. Shu Xiaoman was lost for words. What did Han Fei do this time? Top. Chapter 1239. Not long after Yang Ruoyun and the others ran out, while they were still on their way, they could see countless undead creatures on the surface of the sea, on the mountains, and in the sky, besieging them. Although the Water Fairy had just woken up, this was her world. Although he could descend with his will and directly kill all the sea demons here. However, this kind of consumption was meaningless in the water fairy's eyes. Besides, if she really did that, it might ruin Han Fei's plan. Seeing that Han Fei was still acting, the water fairy couldn't help but sneer. So, this kid is quite naughty. On a certain mountain, a red-robed blood demon was fighting with a red flame reed. Suddenly, a large number of rotten red flame reeds popped up from the land all over the mountain. Chilla! Flames were burning. That wasn't enough. Tens of thousands of undead insects surged up. The man tried to fly away, but a flame fell from the sky. The red flame reed seemed very excited. This whip caused the void to explode. Then, its vines coiled around that person like snakes. Together with the thousands of insect race beings, it dragged him into the pile of insects. Huh! The man summoned his associated spirit, the old turtle. However, as soon as the turtle came out, it was bitten dozens of times by a bunch of undead insects. Its head and limbs were all locked up. After crushing more than 200 insects, it was pinned down by a large area of red flame reeds. Then, it was bitten to death. It wasn't until this moment that the people who entered the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm realized how terrifying this world was. Those who were sent to the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm could be considered geniuses, so they had the confidence to be proud. However, when the number of ordinary undead creatures reached a certain level, their so-called confidence couldn't withstand a single blow. Han Fei was extremely fast. Even when he clearly sensed that there were sea demons and blood demons nearby, he didn't deliberately stop. In his opinion, a lot of people from the Baibei Royal City and the Blood Sea Divine Wood City had died this time. At the entrance, he could only kill a few dozen at most in the state of the Fish Dragon King. After all, there were still heavenly talents. However, this was enough. If most of the people from White Bell's Royal City and Blood Sea Divine Wood City were dead, leaving only the people from Shuemu Heaven alive, it would definitely arouse the suspicion of the two royal cities. When Han Fei was only 10,000 kilometers away from the entrance, Yang Ruoyun and the others happened to appear in his perception. There were only 6 of them. Han Fei was delighted. The enemy was very fast. Han Fei hardly wasted any time on the way. However, Yang Ruoyun and the others had run ahead of him. They must have discovered that something was amiss. Han Fei smiled. Interesting. Let's kill a few of them first. Han Fei had mixed feelings about Yang Ruoyun. When he was in the level 3 fishery, this woman taught him a lot. But as for a blood feud, it wasn't to that extent. After all, this woman was no match for him back then. She was just a little more scheming. Now, Han Fei was looking forward to it. How much has this woman grown? She didn't know why, but ever since she entered the Thousand Mountains Ancient Realm, she had felt that something was amiss. At this moment, she had been spreading out her perception. She was mainly worried that some people would hunt near the entrance instead of hunting for treasures themselves. Although the first day hadn't passed yet, and there shouldn't be many such people, there shouldn't be none. Suddenly, in her perception, she saw a figure, carrying a red spear, flying over at a terrifying speed. The Fish Dragon King. Whether it was in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City or the White Bell's Royal City, those who could be on the heavenly talent list were never simple. Since the Fish Dragon King was ranked 10th on the Sea Spirit Heavenly Talent list of the White Bell's Royal City, he must have something extraordinary. For Yang Ruoyun and the others, this was the most basic information, and they would definitely know it. Not only Yang Ruoyun, but almost everyone had discovered Han Fei. This surprised Han Fei. From the moment he was discovered, he must have been more than 400 kilometers away, right? This meant that the blood demon represented by Yang Ruoyun and the others had a strong soul, even stronger than that of ordinary heavenly talents. The transformation of the soul strength was actually in the tribulation. The reason why Han Fei's soul strength didn't seem to increase much during the tribulation was that Han Fei's soul strength was too high before. So the improvement of the soul strength after the tribulation didn't seem to be very exaggerated. Han Fei didn't have time to memorize the god-scaring painting. Otherwise, the strength of his soul would definitely be improved again. The moment Han Fei appeared, someone exclaimed, "It's the Fish Dragon King." Yang Ruoyun shouted in a low voice, the form of a Millennium Snapper. Bam, bam, bam. As soon as Han Fei appeared, he saw Yang Ruoyun and the others all turned into Millennium Snappers, and their speed doubled in an instant. Squeak! When Yang Ruoyun and the others in their fish form swam, the strange melody they produced seemed to be able to cause their blood vessels to expand. There seemed to be a strange mist in front of him. Illusion? Han Fei smiled disdainfully. If it wasn't a top-level illusion technique, how could they confuse him with the strength of a peak-level sea spirit? This was basically impossible. Moreover, his cultivation level was higher than theirs. Swish! Not only was Han Fei not confused, but his speed even increased by 30%. Yang Ruoyun said to him, "Prepare for battle. Directly enter the battle state." Squeak! The 6 big fish cried out at the same time, and then all kinds of companion spirits rushed out. A big dark green cuttlefish sprayed black ink directly at the place where Han Fei was. One of them shouted, "Don't fight. Go away. In my black domain space, he will fall into an absolutely unconscious state." However, at the moment when they were about to escape, they suddenly heard a sneer. "Ha ha ha, what do you think I am? You want to trap me with a mere cuttlefish ink sac? How dare you?" Han Fei held the red spear in his hand and swung the Monkey King 3000 strikes. Bam! 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 If I want to disguise myself, I'll make it look real. I can still fight even if I don't use the void lines for now. In just an instant, the Millennium Snapper's bones were smashed into pieces, and the airwaves blasted dozens of kilometers away. Han Fei didn't stop. Seeing that the others were still sprinting and didn't have the time to quickly defend, he stabbed the instant mystic spear. Kacha! Puff! Another person, together with her snail companion spirit, was directly stabbed and exploded. The Fish Dragon King was good at using the close-distance technique, Dragon Roar, and spear like a dragon. Han Fei could do that too. He was just trying to look cool. Although he didn't have the Dragon King's bloodline, he could imitate all kinds of creatures with the water vein technique. Yang Ruoyun and the others were shocked. What kind of fucking combat power is this? In the blink of an eye, 2 peak-level sea spirits died without even a chance to resist. The remaining people were shocked. Is this the 10th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City? There was a similar list in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. But different from the Baibei Royal City, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City didn't distinguish between the frontline battlefield and the Royal City. As long as one was a Millennium Snapper, one could live in the Royal City every day. In the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, there were also heavenly talents of the same level, but they weren't as violent as Han Fei. In fact, none of them, including Yang Ruoyun, had actually fought with the top 10 heavenly talents. So, they didn't know how strong Han Fei was at this level. At this critical moment, Yang Ruoyun suddenly shouted, "Blood Poison Curse Technique." As soon as Han Fei stepped out, weird runes burst out from the 4 of them. Han Fei was about to take action, but he suddenly stopped. Huh? Something's wrong. There seems to be something wrong with Yang Ruoyun's spell. Han Fei wasn't afraid of these so-called spells. If they could complete the challenge of a big realm with spells alone, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City would have already unified the Water Wood Heaven. The Baibei Royal City wouldn't be a problem at all. However, the spell was activated, and a large number of red, twisted runes tried to wrap him up. The moment this spell appeared, Han Fei seemed to understand something. This was a kind of spiritual pollution that was trying to integrate into his flesh and blood. However, a faint golden light emerged from Han Fei's body. Clatter, clatter, clatter sounded frequently, but none of the twisted runes could really melt into Han Fei's body. And this was not what Han Fei had expected. What surprised him was that Yang Ruoyun ran away with a string of spells while he was wrapped in runes. She ran away just like that. Han Fei was a little stunned. You have 3 companions here. We agreed to fight the enemy together, but you used them as cannon fodder? Han Fei suddenly grinned. Yang Ruoyun, she is still the same Yang Ruoyun. Resolute, calm, and similarly scheming. Not only was Han Fei surprised, but the 3 Millennium Snappers in front of Han Fei were also stunned. Didn't they agree to attack together? Someone was anxious. Sister Ruoyun, why did she run away by herself? Someone cursed, damn it, she did it on purpose. Let's fight. The 3 of them felt that they might not be able to escape. When they were about to fight, they suddenly heard Han Fei say, I hate this kind of guy who abandons his teammates the most. Ha! I won't kill you. After that, the space in front of Han Fei twisted. Then, Han Fei disappeared from the 3's somewhat confused vision. At the top. Chapter 1240. For Han Fei, it didn't matter whether he killed these 3 people or not. Anyway, he didn't really hate these blood demons. Besides, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City didn't seem to be keen on fighting and seemed to be uninterested in the Shuemu Heaven. The reason why he had to deal with these blood demons was that he wanted to deepen the gap between the 2 cities. Besides, so many people had died in the Baibei Royal City. There had to be a reason. Otherwise, if they were to go out and say who killed him. The Shuemu Heaven. Not many people died in the Shuemu Heaven. Yang Ruoyun used a forbidden technique, so her strength naturally couldn't reach the top 10 of the heavenly talent list. It was even a little difficult for her to enter the top 100. But it didn't mean that she was weak. At least she ran very fast. Swish! Just when Yang Ruoyun thought that her 3 companions could at least stall Han Fei for more than 10 seconds, she heard an arrogant laugh in her ears after just 3 seconds. Your behavior of abandoning your companions really astonishes me. Don't you feel even the slightest bit of guilt? Swish! Yang Ruoyun knew that the Fish Dragon King was using the law proximity technique. So, she slashed the scimitar at the void behind her. As the space trembled slightly, a bang sound rang out, and the weapon exploded. Hiss! The next second, Han Fei seemed to take a deep breath. Humph, you are just guessing blindly. Do you think I will step into the place where you attack and let you blow me up? Han Fei's figure appeared 200 kilometers away and then began to accelerate. Han Fei said casually, to deal with mediocre people like you, I don't need to be so close. In terms of speed, you are no match for me. Yang Ruoyun gritted her teeth. Why does this guy hate me so much? You said that I am mediocre, so why did you come to chase me? She saw Han Fei's figure approaching rapidly. In the blink of an eye, he was 70 or 80 kilometers away. In the blink of an eye, the 2 were only 50 or 60 kilometers away. Yang Ruoyun was stunned. What the hell is this speed? The Blood Sea Divine Wood City is not without heavenly talents. Which one of them can be so fast? Is this the number 10 in the Baibei Kingdom? In the blink of an eye, they were less than 6,000 li away from the exit. However, Han Fei was already in front of him. With Han Fei's terrifying speed, it was almost impossible for her to reach the exit in time. Yang Ruoyun said, Do you want to know the secret of the Thousand Mountains' ancient realm? I know, I'll trade with you. Han Fei almost laughed out loud. Here you go again. Seeing that you can't escape, you're trying to bluff me again. Han Fei shook his head. Humph. I, the Dragon King, am a king. Why would I care about a mere mystic realm? Are you worried that this Dragon King will kill you? Yang Ruoyun cursed in her heart. How arrogant is this person? Impenetrable. Not even interested in such a secret. Han Fei waved his spear and Yang Ruoyun's abdomen was pierced with a puff. In the face of absolute power, she could not resist at all. Pfft, blood spurted out. Yang Ruoyun thought that Han Fei didn't hold back and this blow had seriously injured her. At this moment, she didn't dare to hold back anymore. Squeak! An ear-piercing cry burst out. The waves surged, and a bamboo bottle was released. Thousands of ferocious hero souls whizzed at him. The old turtle said, "Evil technique. This little girl is secretly practicing the soul-devouring evil technique. However, these possession hero souls can't hurt you at all." Han Fei sneered and the void lines bloomed in an instant. No matter what kind of soul it was, it usually wouldn't end well when faced with the divine manipulation technique. And, the red spear in Han Fei's hand was suddenly wrapped in a layer of blue light. Chi, the spear was launched, and the blue light was dazzling. Dozens of those ferocious hero souls were pierced by the spear. Han Fei slightly grinned. More than half of the patterns of the god-scaring painting had appeared. It was a picture of a long spear in the air. What was engraved on it was the power of a spear. However, at this moment, the god-scaring painting hadn't been fully unfolded, so Han Fei couldn't see its full strength. However, the god-scaring painting was a soul visualization painting. If there was an attack on this visualization painting, it must also be a soul attack technique. Han Fei was very satisfied that dozens of heroes' souls were killed with one shot. The old turtle said, "Since you have a soul attack technique, why haven't I seen you use it before?" Han Fei shrugged. "This is already my strongest state." The old turtle knew that Han Fei hadn't practiced it well enough. He said, "No wonder. However, since you have the Heaven Awakening Divine Technique, haven't you learned the purification technique of a spirit gatherer?" Han Fei's eyelids twitched. "Purification technique?" The old turtle said, "It's a kind of extremely powerful method to purify evil spirits, just like your Heaven Awakening Divine Technique. If you don't care about your lifespan, you can also purify these heroes' souls in an instant." Han Fei roared backhandedly, and the dragon's roar shook the sea. The soul-suppressing roar of 100 beasts was not as simple as a collective roar. When he was learning, Han Fei learned it from the alien beasts one by one, and he had heard of the dragon's roar. At this moment, in the dragon's roar, Yang Ruoyun saw hundreds of heroes' soul phantoms explode one after another. Han Fei walked forward with his spear, and wherever the spear went, the heroes' souls would explode. Han Fei said disdainfully, "What else do you have? Use them all and let this Dragon King take a look. Otherwise, do you want to live? There is only one way." Yang Ruoyun gritted her teeth. Some trump cards should not be used unless it was the last resort. If Han Fei didn't say the latter sentence, she would definitely use them. Although she felt that even if she used them, she might not be able to live, it was better than waiting for death. However, to her surprise, she was actually of value in Han Fei's eyes. This surprised her a little. Yang Ruoyun's view of human nature was that as long as you were valuable, you were worth being used. As long as you had bargaining chips, you could negotiate. Immediately, Yang Ruoyun secretly played her trump card and said while retreating, "What is it? There is no conflict between us. Now, you are stronger than me. Just tell me." Han Fei said proudly, "You're smart. The solution is very simple. If you want to live, someone has to die. I can see that you are quite powerful. You won't suffer a loss if I exchange 100 blood demons for your life, right?" Yang Ruoyun suddenly turned her head and stared at him. "You want me to betray my clansmen?" Han Fei said with a faint smile, "Haven't you already sold them?" Yang Ruoyun's face darkened. It was not that she couldn't do this, but she was afraid that she couldn't do it well. She said, "Can you guarantee that no one can escape?" Han Fei snorted coldly. "Are you questioning my strength? Who do you think I am? A few mere blood demons want to escape from this Dragon King? I respect you. Don't be so shameless." Han Fei's words were full of irritation. This Dragon King. It seemed that he would kill Yang Ruoyun at any time. Yang Ruoyun's heart tightened. If it was a reasonable and sophisticated person, it would be great. But the Fish Dragon King's character. How could she negotiate with him? She immediately said, "Okay. It's a deal. What do you want me to do?" Han Fei squinted at her. do you need me to teach you what to do? Of course, you can tempt them to come over. In addition, if you can call the strongest heavenly talents of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City this time, you can make up for 100 of them. Yang Ruoyan's brain was working fast. She felt that Han Fei simply didn't care about her life. What he really wanted was probably not her, but the leader of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City this time. Okay. Yang Ruoyan agreed decisively. She knew very well that her own life was the most important thing. So, there was no need to hesitate. Yang Ruoyan was wrapped in a red cocoon and turned into a millennium snapper, squeaking and drifting far away. Han Fei thought to himself. The old turtle couldn't help but say, "Aren't you blocking the entrance? Why don't you just kill this woman? Why do you have to spend so much effort?" Han Fei grinned. Obliterate them? No, it's better to kill her than to kill her. And she is still useful. After about half an hour, the first group of people rushed to the entrance. But those were half mermaids and half mermaids. They didn't come because they heard the Millennium Snapper's song. In the ocean, the strong had a general understanding, curiosity shouldn't be too strong. This was especially true for a voice that was obviously seductive. Many people would even stay away from it if they heard it. After all, some marine creatures also had the nature to avoid natural enemies. Half an hour later, Han Fei said coldly, "I'll give you another half an hour. If no one comes, prepare to die." Yang Ruoyan gritted her teeth, and suddenly, her eyes lit up. There is a response. Someone is coming. Han Fei asked, "Who?" Yang Ruoyan replied, "One of the leaders this time, Chu Feng." Han Fei froze for a moment. Is there a crouching dragon? Yang Ruoyan. The first batch to arrive wasn't Chu Feng. She had merely responded to him. Therefore, the first batch that Han Fei welcomed were 5 ordinary blood demons. The 5 Millennium Snappers all turned into human forms. Someone frowned, looked at Yang Ruoyan, and asked, "What happened?" Even an emergency summon was issued. However, Yang Ruoyan just glanced at them and suddenly retreated. Seeing Yang Ruoyan's reaction, those people immediately had a bad feeling. When they were about to retreat, they saw a flash of cold light. Puchi. Han Fei was good at water control. If he really wanted to hide himself, these people couldn't find him at all. As soon as they met, Han Fei killed them with his spear. Without giving them a chance to react, he launched his unpredictable speed. Puff, puff, puff. 3 tearing sounds rang out, and 3 people fell in succession. The last person's companion spirit was a jellyfish. Although it was pierced, it didn't die. Squeak, screams rippled out, and the person screamed, "Yang Ruoyan, traitor, Puchi." Before Han Fei took action, 2 moon scimitars with a weird dark green aura directly pierced the jellyfish. After this person died, Yang Ruoyan looked back at Han Fei. "I was just trying to protect myself." Humph. Han Fei arrogantly grabbed a few sea-swallowing seashells and looked at her coldly. But in his heart, he was gloating. At this point, you still want to protect your image? Ha, if I tell you that I didn't kill the 3 people just now, I wonder what you will think. The best. Chapter 1241. From the first time Han Fei attacked, Yang Ruoyan had clearly realized that she was no match for the Fish Dragon King. At this moment, when she saw Han Fei kill 4 people in an instant, a fiery hope rose in her heart. In fact, what did the death of these blood demons have to do with her? Did a strong master need companions? For example, did the Fish Dragon King need companions at this moment? No, as long as he was strong enough, it would be enough. The main reason was that Millennium Snappers, as a special species, grew differently from normal human beings. The fastest way for them to grow was to suck blood and eat souls. This was why they were called blood demons. At this moment, Han Fei killed 4 people in one blow. Their blood and souls were still there, so Han Fei didn't care. But Yang Ruoyan did. Although this was a hunting feast started by Han Fei, it was also an opportunity for her. Yang Ruoyan glanced at Han Fei. Since I'm still useful, it shouldn't be a problem for me to swallow these blood demons, right? Han Fei saw that Yang Ruoyan turned into a Millennium Snapper again, but at this time, she was sucking the blood of the people who had just died. Seeing this scene, Han Fei couldn't help but frown, wondering to himself, do they have to be so unlogged off? She even eats the blood and souls of her companions? The old turtle said, oh. No wonder this little girl's foundation wasn't big, but her realm wasn't weak. It turns out that this is how she eats. It seems that there is a strong evil master in this race. Han Fei said disdainfully, Old Yuan. You are the emperor of the demonic path. How dare you laugh at an evil master? The old turtle roared, what do you know? How do you become a demon? You seem to be moody and domineering. But in fact, you are not. I'm more reasonable than the devil path. Compared with this kind of evil master, I am tens of millions of times better. Han Fei sneered. Keep bragging. Do you think I won't know it in the future? The old tortoise then changed the topic and said, I'm telling you the truth. If this kind of blood-sucking and soul-eating only happens to a few creatures, it doesn't matter. However, if all the clans are like this, then the so-called Blood Sea Sacred Wood City that you speak of might have an expert who cultivates evil techniques. Han Fei couldn't help but think of something. For some reason, after hearing what the old turtle said, he also felt that this matter seemed a bit strange. If a tribe grew up like this, they should be even more aggressive than the Baibei Royal City. After all, if you want to suck blood and eat souls, you have to suck something too, right? Hiss, Han Fei couldn't help but widen his eyes. Are you saying that they have been cultivating talents by raising poisonous insects? The old turtle grunted and said, that's about right. It's similar to the Zerg's explosive soldiers. Han Fei said, however, unlike the insect clan, the blood demons may be transformed from various creatures. These creatures wouldn't forget their memories after becoming Millennium Snappers. In this aspect, it was much stronger than the insect race beings that the insect queen had produced. In the end, the experts of the same realm that were born were even more powerful. At the very least, before reaching the sea spirit realm, the insect race doesn't have much of a competitive edge. The old turtle said, that's right. Spiritual intelligence was something that came from nothing and something that was directly injected into something. These were two completely different concepts. Should I kill this little girl? Han Fei's eyes flickered. No, I have an interesting plan, 1 batch. 2 batches. 3 batches. In the next hour, Han Fei killed 9 batches of blood demons in a row. Coincidentally, a batch of half-mermaids came during this period. There were only 3 of them. However, as soon as the 3 of them arrived, they were directly killed by Han Fei. They didn't even talk to each other. Yang Ruoyan was surprised. You also kill your own kind? Han Fei grinned hideously. Who dares to claim to be of the same kind as me? I have the bloodline of the Dragon King. How can these half-mermaids compare to me? Yang Ruoyan, Han Fei didn't explain. However, Yang Ruoyan had a guess in her heart. Perhaps it was because she was here, and Han Fei was afraid that others would know that he was cooperating with her. In this way, his status in the Baibei Royal City would also be affected. Suddenly, Han Fei said fiercely, why hasn't Chu Feng come yet? Are you lying to me? Yang Ruoyan hurriedly said, Chu Feng is a leader after all. Her mission this time is definitely different from mine. Besides, aren't there always blood demons coming? He had fought with Yang Ruoyan more than once or twice. Han Fei could tell that Yang Ruoyan was lying without thinking. The reason why she called people over was that she wanted to suck the blood and souls of her own kind. Han Fei roared, this is only 9 batches, and there are only about 40 people in total. I can tell that you don't work hard. I'll give you another half an hour. If Chu Feng still doesn't come, I'll directly kill you. Yang Ruoyan's face turned cold and she thought to herself, how much does Han Fei hate me? She wanted to call Chu Feng over, but she was afraid that Han Fei couldn't catch Chu Feng. In that case, she would be screwed. Besides, Yang Ruoyan was also puzzled. It was not that she couldn't call people over, but that Han Fei's words outside the Divine Child Peak attracted a lot of attention. Many people were also sending signals to the nearby blood demons, intending to go with them. As a result, although she tried her best to call people over, not many came over. Because there were also other people calling. However, Han Fei was simply unreasonable. He only spoke according to time and didn't listen to other explanations at all. This made things very difficult for her. On the other side, different from Yang Ruoyan's experience, the 3 blood demons who had just been released by Han Fei didn't dare to chase Han Fei. Instead, they turned back to look for the main team. At this moment, the 3 of them bumped into a team of nearly 50 people. Chu Feng was leading a large group of people to the entrance, mainly because Han Fei's words had scared many people. The blood demons thought that their strong masters had done something wrong. For a moment, the scattered blood demons gradually gathered in the middle of all kinds of creaks and incantations. Chu Feng glanced at the 3 of them. Seeing that they looked flustered, she immediately shouted, "What happened?" One of them said angrily, "Master Chu Feng, we encountered the Fish Dragon King." "Huh? You're still alive?" The man said, "It's mainly because we were betrayed by Yang Ruoyan." After a while, when a large group of Millennium Snappers heard the explanation of the 3 people, they all had different reactions. Someone sneered. "I knew they were not reliable. After all, Yang Ruoyan's group is not the original creatures of the Blood Sea area." Someone shouted in a low voice, "The Fish Dragon King is too arrogant. We can't let him do whatever he wants. Otherwise, people will think that there is no one in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City." Chu Feng flicked her tail and the waves slapped. "Don't be noisy. Yang Ruoyan can keep this matter in mind. Maybe she has already been killed by the Fish Dragon King. Let's go to the front to gather first. Isn't someone summoning us ahead?" Han Fei didn't expect that there would be more than 50 people coming for the 10th time. This was more than the previous 9 waves combined. Han Fei couldn't help but grin. That's good. Yang Ruoyan had already eaten a lot. It was time to show off her identity as the Fish Dragon King. After a moment. Squeak. Yang Ruoyan continued to call out. She only needed to repeat the summon over and over again, and that would be enough. She didn't know that when they were nearly 500 kilometers away, Han Fei found that the leader of the blood demons had already discovered Yang Ruoyan. However, the leader didn't make any response. When Chu Feng sensed Yang Ruoyan, she had already shouted, "Attention, Yang Ruoyan may have defected to the enemy. She is summoning us on purpose. We may be about to be ambushed, or have already been ambushed." Hiss. Ambushed? Why don't I feel anything at all? She's summoning just ahead. If this is a trap, then isn't the one summoning a traitor? Chu Feng was not a fool. When she saw that Yang Ruoyan was summoning them for no reason, she knew that Yang Ruoyan might have defected. However, she scanned the area several times with her perception but still found nothing. Chu Feng was sure that there were no enemies around Yang Ruoyan. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to hide everything from her. If the Shuemu Heavens or the Baibei Royal City were really so powerful that they could easily hide their scent and traces from her, this expedition would have been doomed. Seeing that there were no demonic plants in the place where Yang Ruoyan was, Chu Feng guessed that there could only be 2 kinds of people ambushing them. One was the top experts of the Baibei Royal City. As far as she knew, they were the Fish Dragon King, Yu Hong, and Shui Hongyan. What she was most worried about was not the Baibei Royal City but the human beings. The other was the spirit gatherers among the human beings, who could draw complicated arrays. Different from the inheritance arrays of the sea creatures, there were many kinds of arrays of human beings. If they were ambushed in large numbers, it meant that the other party must be human beings. Chu Feng waved her hand and said, "Everyone, stop." Then, Chu Feng pointed at the 3 people who had just joined the team and then casually pointed at 2 others. The 5 of you, go to the front. If you see Yang Ruoyan, kill her on the spot. First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1242. When Han Fei saw the 3 people he let go just now, he chuckled. It seemed that this impromptu show was almost over. 10 minutes later, when the 3 people she had just abandoned appeared in Yang Ruoyan's perception, she was stunned. She immediately exclaimed, "You didn't kill them?" However, there was no one here to answer her. As early as when Chu Feng sent these people here, Han Fei had lurked and attacked Chu Feng's side. As for Yang Ruoyan, the show had just begun, so she was completely ignored by Han Fei. The old turtle said, "Huh? Why did you deliberately force this little girl into the position of a traitor? Did you know her before?" Han Fei smiled. "Yes, we are old friends. She has no bottom line. She won't die." Sure enough, when the 3 people saw Yang Ruoyan, they immediately screamed. "Yang Ruoyan, you deserter! I'm going to kill you. Yang Ruoyan, we trusted you so much in the past. Who would have thought that in the face of death, this is how you treat us?" Someone reminded, "Be careful. Don't be ambushed." When Yang Ruoyan first saw the 3 people, she had a bad feeling. With the Fish Dragon King's ability, it should be easy for it to kill the 3 of them. But why didn't the Fish Dragon King kill them? Since the Fish Dragon King didn't kill them, didn't it deliberately let the 3 people spread her bad behavior? But what good could the Fish Dragon King do by doing this? Yang Ruoyan couldn't figure it out. She and the Fish Dragon King had nothing to do with each other. Why did the Fish Dragon King make fun of her? Yang Ruoyan was still talking to the people around her via voice transmission. "We have no grudge against each other. Since we want to cooperate, what do these 3 people want?" Unfortunately, there was still no response. At that moment, Yang Ruoyan's pupils constricted. The Fish Dragon King left? Why? For the first time, Yang Ruoyan felt that her IQ was not enough. At this time, the Fish Dragon King left. Did he just want to mess with her? Unfortunately, reality didn't allow her to think too much. There were only 5 people on the other side. If she killed all of them, no one would know that she had betrayed her teammates. Yang Ruoyan said, "Xiao Jing, Kuei, listen to me." Yang Ruoyan did not run away. Instead, with a sincere look, she swam closer to the 5 people. She said, "You're all wrong about me. I escaped because I knew that the Fish Dragon King's target was me. So, as long as I ran fast enough, he wouldn't have time to bother you." Cough. Han Fei, who was already 500 kilometers away, chuckled when he heard this. Sure enough, she could make up anything. "You? And you're the Ichthyosaur King's target? Do I think your face is big?" When those words fell into the ears of the blood demons, it was a different story. When these words fell in the ears of the blood dragon, were, the blood. Someone shouted, "If you have a go, I will." However, Yang Ruoyan did not make any moves. Instead, she said with a serious expression, "I know that no matter what I say, none of you will believe me. How about this, I'll show you." As she spoke, Yang Ruoyan threw a sea-swallowing seashell at them and said, "You'll know why the Fish Dragon King came to me after seeing what's inside, right?" Seeing this scene, Han Fei grinned. It was a familiar routine. What was the difference between this and the treasure map that Yang Ruoyan had given him in the past? However, the treasure map was replaced by a sea-swallowing seashell. A blood demon simply grabbed the sea-swallowing seashell and thought to himself, "Yang Ruoyan is so straightforward. Is there really a secret?" However, when she scanned the area with her perception, her expression changed drastically. Bang! Before they realized what was going on, their sea-swallowing seashells exploded. A few rays of red light suddenly blossomed. Like 5 red arrows, they instantly pierced through the bodies of the 5 people. Puff puff puff, 500 kilometers away, Chu Feng, who was observing from afar, shouted, "Bastard!" Han Fei was not surprised by this. Anything could go wrong with what Yang Ruoyun had given him. It seemed that not all the blood demons were cunning. It was rare to see someone like Yang Ruoyun. Of the people pierced through by Yang Ruoyun, the three closest to her were directly pierced through and their souls shattered. As for the other two, one of them tried to escape, but he was caught by a red string. At the last moment, the man screamed, "It's the soul-attracting branch." Yang Ruoyun has a soul-attracting branch. The last person, because he was the furthest away and ran the fastest, fled in an instant, stained with blood. Of course, Yang Ruoyun wouldn't let this person go. "I've already used my trump card. How can I let you go?" Chu Feng shouted, "Everyone, kill Yang Ruoyun." He. However, just as Chu Feng shouted, a sinister laugh rang out beside her ear. Swish! Suddenly, a spear light pierced through the air, ignoring time, as if penetrating space, and stabbed directly at Chu Feng. This was no longer something that could be described as fast or not. As soon as Han Fei's laughter sounded, Chu Feng's face had already changed, and a fiery red gauze flew out from her body like a red formation. And her body had moved hundreds of meters horizontally. Even so, with a puff, one of Chu Feng's arms was pierced by the spear. Chu Feng's expression changed drastically. "It's the Fish Dragon King." Hum. Squeak! One companion spirit after another appeared. Someone turned into a human form and whipped Han Fei with a long whip. Someone tried to confuse Han Fei in the form of a Millennium Snapper. Han Fei stepped into the crowd of blood demons, pointed his spear, grabbed a spear with one hand, and crushed it with one hand. Han Fei shouted coldly, "You're just a bunch of blood demons. How dare you attack me?" Dumb. Han Fei quickly moved sideways and smashed the Monkey King's 3,000 strikes. The dozen or so blood demons that attacked him were smashed into a mist of blood almost in the blink of an eye. Seeing this scene, Chu Feng's heart skipped a beat. Is this Fish Dragon King so strong? His physique, speed, and strength seem to be better than mine. But the Fish Dragon King is only ranked 10th on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City? Then how strong are the 9 people in front of him? Chu Feng shouted, "Everyone, don't fight. Run." Looking at the Millennium Snappers that were fleeing, Han Fei sneered. "You want to run? That depends on whether I'm willing to." Huh! The dragon roared, and the sharp spear light traversed the sea. Puff! Puff! It was not the instant mystic spear, but the spear light in the god-scaring painting. Although it could not be used to its full potential, once the spear was unleashed, it would be able to destroy the souls of these blood demons. It could even ignore physical defense and directly bombard souls. Run! Not good. This man is too fierce. We can't defeat him. My illusion doesn't work on him. No, I can't forcibly affect his chi and blood. For a moment, there were exclamations, and some people fled in a hurry. Chu Feng shouted, "Fish Dragon King, is there any misunderstanding between the Blood Sea Divine Wood City and the Baibei Royal City?" Han Fei roared, "Misunderstanding? How dare you ambush this Dragon King? You actually killed this Dragon King's personal guards, not leaving a single one alive. Based on your behavior, if I don't kill more than 300 blood demons today, how can I appease my anger?" Chu Feng immediately cursed in his heart, "No. The Fish Dragon King is so strong. Who on earth has the ability to ambush such a person? And even killed all of his personal attendants?" Unfortunately, this was not the time to think about it. The problem now was that the Fish Dragon King had gone crazy. Chu Feng shouted, "Fish Dragon King, don't go too far. Otherwise, no one will benefit from a life-and-death struggle." Han Fei chuckled. "Then let's have a try. Let's see if my net is strong enough." Kacha! A green conch was smashed by Han Fei with a spear strike. Its master vomited blood and was pierced by Han Fei's spear. Therefore, a miraculous scene appeared in the sea. Han Fei, alone, with a red spear, chased and killed more than 40 blood demons. When Han Fei chased them to the exit, he found that hundreds of Shui Mu Tian's people were intercepting him. There were 200 or 300 sea demons and red demons each. They had gathered and were fighting Shui Mu Tian. When Han Fei intercepted the blood demons outside, it seemed that many people had already rushed to the entrance. At that time, everyone saw that Han Fei was chasing nearly 20 people. When he appeared in their perception, they were all speechless. It looked too disharmonious. Seeing this scene, Shu Xiaoman thought to herself, why can Han Fei be so fierce no matter who he turns into? Chu Feng shouted, everyone, join forces and kill the fish dragon king. Han Fei roared, today, I'm going to slay 300 blood demons. Don't stop me. A sea demon shouted, Master Dragon King, Shui Mu Tian. Han Fei glared at them and shouted, Shui Mu Tian, I'm not interested in fighting you today. Leave now. Then Han Fei suddenly pointed his spear at Shu Xiaoman. Do you want to stop me? Shu Xiaoman was slightly taken aback. Again? She said, I, Shui Mu Tian, will not get involved in the affairs of your Baibei royal city and the Blood Sea Divine Wood city. Han Fei said proudly, since you don't want to fight, get out. Don't get in my way. Immediately, Shui Mu Tian's side was in an uproar, and a bug buzzed, why should we go out when you tell us to? How humiliating will we be? A big bird shouted, we won't go. What can you do to us? This was the excuse that Han Fei wanted. He wanted an excuse to stop. The next moment, Han Fei's face changed and he said with an awful expression, fine, fine, fine. Shui Mu Tian ruined my plan. I will find you sooner or later and kill you heavenly talents one by one. How dare you ambush me and kill my subordinates with the Blood Sea Divine Wood City? I will never forgive you. Just wait and see. At this moment, Han Fei suddenly felt that a strange power entered his body. Before Han Fei asked, the old turtle said, just keep acting. It happens to be close to the entrance, so I'll offer a sacrifice to that fish. Second. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1243. Yuan Dao, who was waiting outside the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, felt inexplicably annoyed. When Han Fei sacrificed for the second time, he found that Han Fei's soul power was not weak, but full of self-deception. Just now, he found that one of his great paths was borrowed, and he didn't even have a chance to resist. Originally, he created the Book of Changes. After someone cultivated it and sacrificed their soul, he would grant them the power of great paths. Something's wrong. At this moment, Yuan Dao was shocked. 3 great paths in one day. Would he be able to eat it? Besides, it was in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Even if the power of great paths was borrowed, so what? If you exerted the power of the Tao-seeking state, you would have bad luck and even be bombarded by the great paths. However, Yuhanjia borrowed it twice and sent a large number of souls, which were full of roars, power, desire, fighting, killing. These inexplicable things. Suddenly, a female venerable looked at Yuan Dao and asked, Wen Dao, your spiritual waves are a bit strong. What's wrong? Yuan Dao's expression changed slightly as he said with a faint smile, nothing much, I just had a sudden thought. A half-mermaid venerable frowned. How many times have I told you that your great paths are a bit complicated? I told you to focus on one Dao, but you didn't listen. What ideas do you have now? Yuan Dao asked, maybe it's the idea of breaking through the venerable realm. Guys, let me leave for now. The half-mermaid venerable shook his head slightly. Go. I hope you can understand that it's not easy to find a Dao. Sometimes, one Dao is equivalent to thousands. Yuan Dao nodded slightly. Okay. I'll try again. Then, Yuan Dao tore the void and fled. As soon as he entered the void, Yuan Dao's face began to slowly twist. A low roar burst out from Yuan Dao's throat. If one looked carefully, they would find that Yu Wendao's eyes had turned completely black. Roar. Why? Is the Book of Changes wrong? Why is a peak level C spirit boy's soul so dark? Roar. Let go of your soul, and you will gain infinite power. You will become immortal. In the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, the Fish Dragon King that Han Fei was disguised as wasn't stupid enough to fight the blood demons immediately. Although he was a spy now, he couldn't do such a stupid thing blatantly. It was true that the Fish Dragon King was a Heaven's Chosen, but it would be too much of a lie to say that any random Heaven's Chosen from the royal city could challenge hundreds of people. That would definitely raise suspicions. Han Fei suddenly sensed that one or two marvelous powers suddenly crawled into his body. Then, it was eaten by the old tortoise. He couldn't sense what kind of power it was, but he felt that it was very strange. The power seemed to be very strong. Old turtle, what are you doing? The old turtle said, I've been egging that fish to seek the path for a day, and I've just offered a sacrifice. I'm about to capture it. Mind your own business. Don't worry about me. Seeing that Han Fei seemed to be lost in thought, Chu Feng heaved a sigh of relief. She immediately asked, has anyone seen Yang Ruoyan? She has rebelled. Kill her on the spot. Ignoring the old turtle, Han Fei said to Shu Xiaoman telepathically, tell them that the mission has been completed. Don't tell them that I've been to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Shu Xiaoman immediately replied, it's really you. You're out. Has the Fish Dragon King died? Those who have seen me have all died. Wait for a while. When the undead drive the people to the exit, you can leave with the people of the Shuemu Heaven first. Shu Xiaoman asked, what about you? Aren't you going back to the Shuemu Heaven? I have my own business. Shu Xiaoman stared at Han Fei and asked, what do you want me to say to Jing Er? Han Fei pondered for a moment and finally replied, tell Jing Er 2 words. Shu Xiaoman couldn't help but wonder, what message can 2 words convey? She couldn't help but ask, what word? Han Fei replied, junior sister. Shu Xiaoman. The Fish Dragon King that Han Fei incarnated was standing in the air at this moment, with the red spear in his hand trembling slightly beside him. His eyes had been fixed on the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, which made many blood demons a little flustered. Just when Han Fei was thinking about how to provoke it, he suddenly discovered that 3 people had appeared in his perception almost at the same time. One of them was Yang Ruoyan. And the other one, to Han Fei's surprise, turned out to be Lan Shuer. Next to Lan Shuer was Yu Keiling. Huh? Han Fei was a little surprised. After Lan Shuer was poisoned and frozen into an ice block, she didn't die. Not only did she not die, but also Yu Keiling. Wasn't she caught in the 9 sounds of the Great Way and swallowed by the undead? Han Fei's pupils constricted slightly. Did these 2 people know that he killed the Fish Dragon King? They probably didn't see it. But should he bet on it? Humph. In the awkward situation where the 3 parties gathered together but couldn't fight, Han Fei shouted, Chu Feng, right? Tell this Dragon King, who in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City can control this strange melody? Who can control the 7 emotions and 6 desires? Tell me, and I won't give you a hard time. Han Fei didn't hide his words when he spoke. Therefore, the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, the Baibei Royal City, and the Shuemu Heavens were all surprised. What? The Fish Dragon King chased after Han Fei angrily because it was tricked by someone in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City? Chu Feng's face turned cold. She was confused at first. Although she didn't really have a life-and-death battle with Han Fei, judging from Han Fei's combat efficiency and strength, she was definitely no match for him. And on this trip to the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, there shouldn't be many people stronger than her. Chu Feng doubted that there was anyone stronger than the Fish Dragon King. Who the hell knew that the 10th on the heavenly talent list from the Baibei Royal City would be so strong? When Han Fei was so strong, there was still someone on her side who could ambush Han Fei. And he even successfully killed the other people around the Fish Dragon King. How could she not know that he was so strong? When Han Fei said that, his voice echoed far away. Lan Shuer, Yu Keiling, and Yang Ruoyun, who was hiding, all heard it. However, in the ears of these three people, it sounded different. If Lan Shuer and Yu Keiling knew that he attacked the Fish Dragon King, they would definitely doubt his authenticity when they heard his voice. And if Yang Ruoyun heard what he said, with her cleverness, she might be able to figure out a way to get out of his death. In the distance. After hearing Han Fei's voice, Lan Shuer immediately trembled and bit her lips with a complicated look in her eyes. She really didn't expect that a strong master like the Fish Dragon King could be so ruthless. In the face of danger, he used himself as a shield. Yu Keiling patted Lan Shuer's shoulder. It's better to rely on yourself than on others. Before you're strong enough to resist these people, you have to hold back. Lan Shuer nodded heavily. Sister Keiling, what should we do now? Yu Keiling said, from the tone of the Fish Dragon King, at least he is safe. Besides, this person asked so domineeringly, which means that the situation should not be very dangerous. But this person is arrogant. In case he starts another war, let's wait. On the other side, Yang Ruoyun still didn't know that Chu Feng had already known that she had betrayed the Fish Dragon King. So, she wanted to continue to move forward. However, for some reason, she was a little afraid of the Fish Dragon King. This person's way of doing things was unconstrained, and he didn't play by the rules. She felt that he had a purpose, but she really couldn't figure it out. Yang Ruoyun also decided to wait a little longer. If a battle was about to break out, who knew how she could survive? However, on the Divine Child Peak, Water Fairy clearly knew that there was no such powerful person as Han Fei said. Ambush him. He should be thankful that he didn't ambush others. Therefore, Water Fairy could tell that Han Fei was just making up a story and making up an enemy. Therefore, those blood demons were inexplicably implicated. Water Fairy could understand that since Han Fei couldn't attack Shui Mutian, he had to make an enemy so that he could better blend in with the sea demons. However, what Water Fairy didn't understand was that there seemed to be something extraordinary in Han Fei's body. There seemed to be some kind of Taoist aura that crossed her own barrier and fell on Han Fei. This was one point. On the other hand, Han Fei seemed to have been forcing the blood demon named Yang Ruoyun to a dead end, but every time he gave her a chance to live, he must have the intention to make use of her. At this point, Water Fairy could conclude that the Han Fei she saw now was far more cunning than that silly disciple Wang Han. Just from this series of actions that she didn't understand, she could guess that Han Fei must be planning something. With a thought from Water Fairy, half of the sea became restless. More and more undead creatures began to drill out of the ground and began to approach the entrance. At the same time, Han Fei pointed his spear at Chu Feng. Are you going to tell me or not? Third. Asking for tickets. Flying to Hangzhou immediately. End of this chapter. Chapter 1244. No matter how useless Chu Feng was, she was still one of the leaders of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. Why was Han Fei pointing at him like this? Not to mention that she didn't know there was such a person in her camp. Even if she knew, she wouldn't tell you in front of so many people. A fishbone spear appeared in Chu Feng's hand and she also pointed at Han Fei. Fish Dragon King, do you really think you're invincible? Han Fei smiled contemptuously. Why? Are you doubting this Dragon King's ability? Come, this Dragon King will give you a handicap of both legs. If you move a single step, it's my loss. Let's see what level the prodigies of your Blood Sea Divine Wood City are at. Buzz. Yeah. Immediately, the crowd of blood demons burst into an uproar. Someone said coquettishly, how arrogant. Why would they need Chu Feng? I'll help you. A blood demon leaped out, roared, and the branches of the sea willows behind him waved their fangs and claws at Han Fei like 3,000 white hairs. The blood demon's goal was simple. Didn't Han Fei boast that he would lose if he moved one step? She didn't believe that Han Fei could suppress all the heavenly talents here with just one hand. Thousands of pairs of eyes immediately stared at Han Fei. Regardless of whether it was the Baibei royal city or the Shuemu sky, they had never seen the fish dragon king get serious. At this moment, of course, he was curious. All the sea demons widened their eyes. They wanted to see just how strong the so-called prodigies on the prodigy roll of the royal city were. An insect buzzed. "This is a bit difficult." A big bird stood on the back of the insect. "What do you mean by a little difficult?" If he didn't move, he wouldn't have any leverage. He was still standing in midair, not standing on the seawater. He wanted to kill a peak sea spirit with just a horizontal strike. How could an ordinary person do that? On the human side, many people's eyes flickered. If the heavenly talents of the Baibei royal city are so strong, how many people in the Shuemu heaven can compare to them? Only Xu Xiaoman's eyes were shining. If she hadn't seen Han Fei fight, she wouldn't have cared. When Han Fei was a peak-level law enforcer, he had already defeated 100 enemies by himself. Surpassing realms to fight was like a game to him. Han Fei had already become an explorer. How could he be defeated? Han Fei held the spear with one hand and pressed the end of the spear with his palm. For a moment, the spear was shrouded in red demonic energy, and he pointed it forward casually. Everything seemed normal. Many people did not discover anything from this spear. They only heard Chu Feng shout, "Dodge!" However, Chu Feng was still too slow. She thought that since everyone knew that Han Fei was good at the proximity technique, they would be wary of him. However, at that moment, she seemed to have realized that something was wrong. What exactly was wrong? She didn't see it clearly, but it was definitely not right. When Chu Feng shouted, the corners of Han Fei's mouth were still curled. Although the principles of the short-distance technique and the instant technique were different, the effects they produced were extremely similar. The closed-distance technique shortened the distance, while the moment technique froze time for a split second. After the spear light pierced through the air, the spearhead came out from the other side. Wasn't that the closed-distance technique? Generally speaking, under the premise that time was not affected, as long as one was fast enough, one could still dodge it. However, if time was frozen, there was no such thing as dodging, because there was no way to dodge it at all. This was also why Zhang Xuanyu's overall strength was the weakest in the Thug Academy, but he was probably second only to Han Fei in one-on-one combat. This was a combat skill that this guy comprehended on his own, which was extremely powerful. As long as he seized the opportunity, there was no way to dodge it. Puff! Without any suspense, Han Fei's spear pierced through the blood demon's chest. Rich demonic energy was injected in an instant. With a bang, the blood demon exploded. This person had been dead for several seconds before a willow branch reached Han Fei. However, Han Fei put one hand on his waist and put away the spear with the other, as if he didn't see these willow branches at all. When these willow branches reached Han Fei, they began to wither and wither, not even reaching the corner of Han Fei's clothes. At this moment, the audience was silent. Han Fei's spear was too casual. It was just a light shot, but the moment it was shot out, it was so fast that they couldn't see it at all. Therefore, everyone thought that they had recognized the power of the close-distance technique. This kind of combat method that ignored spatial distance was really terrifying. A sea demon exclaimed secretly, "So strong, isn't he too strong?" A sea demon swallowed. Is this 10th on the heavenly talent list in the royal city? On the Shuemu heavenly side, a human exclaimed, "This speed is even faster than Shadowless Arrow Stream." Someone said solemnly, "No, it's even faster than Arrow Flash." An insectoid stroked its large horn with its long whiskers. "Can I block that attack?" A big bird was speechless. "Who gave you the confidence?" Clang. Han Fei flicked the spear's shaft lightly, making a crisp sound of metal colliding. Han Fei stared at Chu Feng, his eyes unfocused. "Me? You're not even qualified to block my spear. Is everyone in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City this kind of trash?" Chu Feng's face turned green. Of course, she had her own trump cards. But why did she fight the Fish Dragon King? Someone had reminded her on the way here. This time, there were 3 strongest people in the Baibei royal city. The first was the Fish Dragon King. The second was Yu Hong and Shui Hongyan. At this moment, the other 2 hadn't appeared, but the strongest Fish Dragon King had appeared. No one would be willing to fight with him. However, Chu Feng thought for a moment, I have so many people on my side. I'm not afraid that the Fish Dragon King will attack me. Otherwise, the Fish Dragon King will definitely benefit from the fight between the Sandpiper and the Clam. This Fish Dragon King was not stupid. Since it couldn't fight a group battle, it would be a one-on-one battle. Judging from the Fish Dragon King's performance just now, Chu Feng certainly wouldn't go out to fight it alone. If she won, she would certainly become famous, and this matter would definitely spread throughout the Blood Sea Divine Wood. However, if she lost, she might even lose her life. Chu Feng immediately glanced at the Shuemu Heavenly side and shouted, Shuemu Heavenly, your Shuemu Heavenly side has the most people here. Why don't we join hands and kill the sea demons in the Baibei royal city? Han Fei grinned and immediately said to Young Man telepathically, I agree, but, Young Man stepped out and said coldly, okay, except for the Fish Dragon King, all the sea demons belong to us. The Fish Dragon King belongs to you. Immediately, all the sea demons changed their expressions. A sea demon scolded Chu Feng angrily, Demon, we are all sea demons anyway. If you do this, the 2 royal cities will fight to the death in the future. Chu Feng smiled contemptuously and said, who do you think you are? How can you decide the affairs of the strong? It's not up to you to decide whether the royal cities will fight or not. Chu Feng shouted in a low voice, Sisters, everyone's target is the Fish Dragon King. Han Fei pretended to be gloomy, then pointed at Young Man and said, Good, good, Shuemu Heavenly. I'll remember you. What's your name? The Shuemu Heavenly is not bad to have someone like you. Young Man said, likewise. You are not weak either. You can be called a heavenly talent. As for me, I'm Shu Xiaoman of the human race's Flying Feather tribe. Han Fei grinned hideously. Okay. Young Man, I'll remember you. In the future, I'll definitely fight with you for 3,000 rounds. Then, Han Fei glanced at the sea demons and shouted in a low voice, the people of the Baibei royal city would rather die than kneel. If they want to fight, then let's fight. Let's see what happens. Huh. Han Fei held the spear and the spear light bloomed. If more people are useful, why do we still need to cultivate? You will eventually discover how powerful this Dragon King is. Watch this Dragon King defeat all of you alone. Han Fei was very happy to see this battle. Chu Feng knew that this choice was actually more disadvantageous to her. However, at this moment, her life was at stake. She couldn't really go up and fight the lunatic Fish Dragon King, could she? Besides, the reason why Chu Feng chose to fight was that she had the confidence to do so. As soon as Han Fei rushed out, the battle broke out in an instant. Young Man shouted coldly, kill. Buzzing, chirp chirp, what could those sea demons do? At this time, they could only fight. Fortunately, they also had more than 300 people. Although the number of people was less than half that of Shui Mutian's side, it was not impossible for them to fight. However, no one chose to fight Young Man at all. After all, even the Fish Dragon King was quite appreciative of this person. When they entered the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm, many people had seen the scene of Young Man pointing her fingers and the sea demons exploding. It was very terrifying. And Young Man stood on a bug and didn't make a move. She just watched all this quietly and said lightly, more than 600 people against 300 people. If I lose, I won't have the face to tell others. As for Han Fei, he was trapped in countless rune spells, and those blood demons surrounded Han Fei in circles. All the blood demons squeaked. Chu Feng's voice sounded like a ghost in the thousands of rolling spells. Fish Dragon King, aren't you curious about what will happen if you use the strength of the Tao-seeking state in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm? Today, you are courting death. Don't blame others. Just now, the space collapsed, and Han Fei was directly wrapped by the endless spell. At this moment, he glanced at the runes around him, only to see that the runes were moving like swords and attacking. After a while, these runes began to evolve and gradually formed a huge fish. In Han Fei's eyes, information appeared. Name: accursed demonic fish. Introduction: an evil spell written with life. It's an evil creature summoned by all creatures with blood as a sacrifice. It has the ability to copy the opponent's strength. This creature will absorb the opponent's blood, soul, vitality, and strength through the power of the curse to strengthen itself. When all the opponent's strength is swallowed, the cursed demonic fish will become the opponent and become an emotionless puppet creature. Level: unknown. Quality: unknown. Realm: unknown. Combat skill: strength. Copy. Remarks: don't fight a protracted battle. Chapter 1245. Huh. Before Han Fei fought, the old turtle suddenly said, "It's really an evil technique." This was a cursed demon fish. Someone had once captured a king and used the cursed demon fish to forcefully absorb it, forcibly sucking that king to death. Even his great Tao was sucked away. In the end, this cursed fish turned into a king puppet. Han Fei's face changed. So strong. The old turtle said, "It's a pity that this cursed demonic fish was used to deal with you. It seems that. Why don't you try sucking it back?" Han Fei. The old turtle said, "Cursed demonic fish are just unconscious evil creatures. They fight according to some kind of will. But you are different. You can steal lives at any time. In this way, you are actually more evil than it." Han Fei, although the old turtle's words were not pleasant to hear, this cursed demonic fish was a bit similar to his void line's ability. However, it had the ability to absorb blood, soul, and power. Among them, the void lines could also seize souls, but it had to be done after the other party had died. Only then could he use the void lines to absorb some of the souls back. At this point, just absorbing the soul power of some living creatures was no longer enough for him to grow. Of course, when the number reached a certain level, it would be another situation. For example, in the battle outside the Divine Child Peak just now. Han Fei had absorbed a lot of souls, but he couldn't absorb any more. This cursed demonic fish was huge, more than 300 meters long, and it was definitely a super sea monster. As a matter of fact, when the cursed demonic fish opened its mouth, endless black mist shrouded the entire space. Han Fei glanced around and saw that those weird characters were emitting bursts of red light. Han Fei tried to rush up and hit it more than 200 times with the Monkey King 3000 strikes to see the effect. In the outside world, above a huge rune ball, there was a series of thumping sounds. A large number of curse runes were smashed by Han Fei's terrifying power. Chu Feng shouted, "Fuse with your associate spirits. This person must be killed. Otherwise, we can't show the power of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City." The women in red, who were originally in human form, had all turned into Millennium Snappers at this moment. Runes shot out from their mouths. Wherever it was broken, these bright red runes would mend it. Inside the array, Han Fei had been wrapped in a large black fog. Because of the enormous suction force, Han Fei could clearly feel that his vitality was slowly draining away. He stepped on the coiled turtle array and the soul driving array. Both arrays were activated at the same time. At the same time, all the void lines erupted and hooked onto the huge fish. After that, Han Fei felt that he was under an enormous and terrifying pressure on his soul. Han Fei was surprised. This fish's soul is so strong. I feel that it's even stronger than mine. The old turtle said, "No, the soul power of this cursed fiend fish is equal to your own soul power. It is summoned according to you. Therefore, its power and the strength of its soul are completely based on you." Han Fei gnashed his teeth. "Why do I feel like you're gloating?" The old turtle cackled and said, "That Yuan Dao is about to be devoured by me. He pursues the Great Way too much. I'm simulating a great way for him. Ha, he thinks he has created a new great way. Ha." Hearing that the old turtle was still thinking about the fish Wen Dao at this critical moment, Han Fei immediately ignored him. Han Fei made up his mind and fully activated the sky-stealing technique. You devour my vitality, and I devour yours. Let's see who can steal more. Although this cursed fiend fish was the same as Han Fei in terms of power. However, don't forget that Han Fei was simulating a peak-level sea spirit with the art of deception. Therefore, the cursed fiend fish was also at this level. Of course, the soul and power were essentially the same. It was just the difference in realm. In addition, there was an essential difference: the cursed fiend fish was a summoned creature. Such an impressive creature was not something that could appear just because one wanted to. She also contained a powerful life force. However, this vitality was provided by the more than 300 blood demons. Because of the gap in realm, Han Fei suddenly felt that his vitality seemed to be slowly increasing. This speed was not very fast, but it was definitely increasing. In the outside world, Chu Feng and the others looked at the rune array and gradually there was no movement. They couldn't help but show great joy on their faces. Chu Feng let out a long sigh of relief and sneered. Arrogant guy, our blood sea divine wood city occupies a place with rune spells. How can you understand that? In the mysterious space that seemed to be wrapped by billions of runes, a huge fish head slowly poked out. As soon as this fish came out, those runes were all introduced to the big fish. When the cursed fiend fish appeared completely, its body size was only more than 200 meters long, which surprised Chu Feng a little. Is this fish dragon king so powerful? The cursed fiend fish summoned with him as the foundation was more than 200 meters long, which could only show that Han Fei was indeed very strong. After all, the summoned cursed fiend fish was as strong as the enemy in terms of strength. Therefore, the cursed fiend fish was so huge that Chu Feng was dumbfounded. However, Chu Feng didn't know that Han Fei had forcibly reduced the size of the cursed fiend fish by 100 meters. At this moment, a large group of Millennium Snappers suddenly felt weak. Including Chu Feng, they all felt weak. Chu Feng said, "Don't panic. When the fish dragon king completely dies, it will be a great contribution. 100 years of vitality is nothing." Shu Xiaoman, who hadn't fought yet, frowned and sensed the battle between Han Fei and the blood demon 100 kilometers away. From the moment Han Fei disappeared, her attention had never left him. Although she wanted to help, the Jing messenger had told her not to take the initiative before she came. That fish looked extraordinary at first glance. The scales on its body weren't scales at all, but strange runes of all shapes and sizes. However, after 100 breaths, just as Chu Feng thought that his side was about to win, he suddenly felt a portion of the vitality in his body being forcefully extracted. It transformed into a sea of incantations that flew out and imprinted on the body of the cursed demon fish. Immediately, a blood demon said anxiously, "Not good. I've lost 300 years of vitality. Why is the fish dragon king still alive?" Someone shouted, "The cursed fiend fish is indeed shrinking. When it grows to the size of the fish dragon king, it means that the puppet has been refined successfully. Fine, we'll lose another 100 years of vitality." However, after 100 seconds, the cursed fiend fish shrank to within 100 meters. Everyone's life force and lifespan were once again forcibly sucked away. At this moment, someone finally realized that something was wrong. Chu Feng looked awful. Why is the fish dragon king still alive? The cursed fiend fish is shrinking too slowly. Where did the Jade Dragon King get so much vitality for the cursed fiend fish to devour? Could it be that the fish dragon king was carrying a large number of spiritual fruits or life force tonics? After the 5th vitality absorption, when almost everyone contributed more than 500 years of vitality on average, someone shouted, "No, something must be wrong with the cursed fiend fish. Why is it still more than 50 meters long?" Someone wanted to stop, but seeing that the cursed fiend fish was reduced from more than 200 meters to only 50 meters, it meant that the fish dragon king was about to be swallowed and become the puppet fish dragon king. Someone shouted in a low voice, "Sisters, we've come to this point. The reason why the cursed demonic fish was so slow was because the ichthyosaur king was too powerful and he had too many treasures with him. However, the stronger the fish dragon king is, the more benefits we can get from the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. Let's work harder. Once. Twice. 3 times. Han Fei felt that the cursed fiend fish had been sucked dry by him. The vitality of the cursed fiend fish was beyond his imagination. Han Fei felt that he had returned to his prime. At this moment, his lifespan should have reached 2,000 years again. Maybe even exceeded it. Today, he used the Apocalypse Divine technique twice. Who would have thought that he would be able to make up for that terrifying consumption in just one day? Because of the great loss of vitality, most of the Millennium Snappers in the outside world still looked beautiful on the surface. However, if one were to take a closer look, they would discover that the Millennium Snappers were emitting a deathly aura. Since the beginning, more than 30 people had died because of the lack of vitality. Once this great technique was activated, they couldn't let it go at all. Kacha! When the cursed fiend fish cracked, everyone saw the fish dragon king standing motionlessly in the sea. Immediately, someone breathed a sigh of relief. In any case, it's already very commendable to kill the 10th strongest on the heavenly talent list of the Baibei Royal City. However, just when these Millennium Snappers were relieved and began to chuckle, they suddenly heard an arrogant and moldy voice. Is this all the so-called strong master of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City can do? After such a long time, you only got a lousy fish? Trying to devour my vitality and power? I, the Dragon King, have the bloodline of the Dragon King. How can your little tricks affect me? Ah! How is it possible? How can he be fine? No, if the fish Dragon King is fine, why did the cursed fiend fish become smaller? Puff! Someone was still talking, when he suddenly found that there was one more person next to him. Who else could it be but the fish Dragon King? Bam! 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 Han Fei performed the Monkey King 3,000 strikes again. Anyway, what did these blood demons know? Except for the fish Dragon King's law enforcement distance, how could they know what other combat techniques the fish Dragon King had? Besides, for a guy as irascible as the fish Dragon King, the Monkey King 3,000 strikes was perfect for him. Who said that a spear could only stab people? It was equally effective for whipping and smashing people. Many of the blood demons who had just been fed with most of their vitality were still in the state of Millennium Snappers. In desperation, they tried to control Han Fei with melody. However, for Han Fei, their soul power was too weak to pull him into an illusion. Almost in the blink of an eye, more than 30 people were smashed by Han Fei. Han Fei smiled coldly. Today, you will all die. Chapter 1246. The blood demons would never have thought that Han Fei could even resist such a curse. Moreover, he didn't seem to be injured at all. They couldn't understand it at all. It was impossible. In reality, it was not that Chu Feng's method of commanding the battle was wrong. If it had been the real Ichthyosaur King, he might have been able to avoid it unless he didn't engage in close combat from the start. Otherwise, as long as he entered this great incantation technique, wanting to forcefully break it, it was impossible. Even with Han Fei's strength, he couldn't directly break this array with the Monkey King 3,000 strikes. Of course, Han Fei didn't try his best. Shu Xiaoman breathed a sigh of relief when she saw all this from afar. She couldn't help but feel a little annoyed. Why did she have to worry about Han Fei? How could something happen to this guy who was so abnormal that it made one's scalp go numb? At this moment, Han Fei was killing everyone. However, in his perception, there seemed to be a black tide appearing on the surface of the sea more than 1,000 miles away. In front of the tide, the Millennium Snappers and sea demons were running wildly. Of course, there were also beings from the water wood heaven. The water deity's voice echoed in Han Fei's head, "Okay, although I don't know what your plan is, I'm not afraid of you. However, your goal should be almost there. If you continue killing, the number of people in your camp will be more than the other 2 camps combined. 1,000 miles away. Yang Ruoyan, Yu Kailing, and the others all turned pale. So many undead creatures. In their perception, a huge black wave appeared. It was not a tide, but the undead insects and undead birds crawling on the surface of the sea. On the surface of the sea, there was a large amount of black seaweed spreading. They saw a half-mermaid entangled by a vine with their own eyes. In the blink of an eye, thousands of black thorns stabbed at him, followed by a large amount of seaweed that wrapped him up. Seaweeds and insects crawled along the way. That person was immediately engulfed by the black tide. In just a few breaths, he had turned into a pile of white bones that sank to the bottom of the sea. Who wouldn't be terrified at the sight of this? Even those insect race beings from the Shui Mu heaven were a little taken aback. Of course, the Zergs were a race with bigger ambitions. In their minds, defeating and eating their opponents was a very normal thing. There was nothing wrong with it. Since the undead bug tribe of the Thousand Mountains ancient realm would not attack live bugs like them, there were close to 100 Waterwood Sky bug tribe members charging at the front of the black tide while letting out a series of buzzing noises. Eat. Eat and wear the white shell royal city and the blood sea divine wood city. Charge. Our insect race is the strongest. Our army is in the millions. When the Zergs clamored and rushed to the entrance, Han Fei smashed one of them with a flip of his hand. He crushed a blood demon's protective blade wheel with one hand and suddenly retreated. Han Fei said telepathically, "Shu Xiaoman, take them away." Shu young man was shocked. In the battlefield between Shui Mutian and the sea demons, Shu Xiaoman suddenly stepped out and shouted, "Everyone, after 10 breaths, break out of the ancient realm." Someone was surprised. Why? Young man, we have won a great victory this time, we should follow up with another attack. Shu Xiaoman said, "Let's go. Don't ask so many questions." Shu Xiaoman knew that in Han Fei's eyes, the life and death of these sea spirit state creatures were not important at all. Whether they were alive or dead, it didn't matter, because none of these people was a match for him. Besides, she had seen Han Fei fight 100 people alone. If Han Fei really wanted to attack, he wouldn't have killed 40 or 50 people in such a short time. At least half of them would have died here. It was obvious that Han Fei was planning something. His vision was limited, so he could only cooperate with him. Swish. 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 Chu Feng and the others were going to fight again, but Han Fei suddenly stopped, which made many people confused. Then they perceived that many of their clansmen had appeared. In midair, streaks of red shadows dashed towards them at high speed. And Chu Feng knew one of them. Wasn't that Yang Ruoyan? Chu Feng shouted in a low voice, "Yang Ruoyan, how dare you show up?" Someone roared, "It's Yang Ruoyan. How dare she show up?" However, Yang Ruoyan responded, "Run, the undead bug tide is coming. I'll explain everything to you when we get out." Chu Feng and the others all changed their expressions. What the hell? A bug tide? This was only the first day they entered the Thousand Mountain ancient realm. Even if there was a bug tide, why were they so panicked? However, Chu Feng was shocked. Why did the fish dragon king stop? Chu Feng looked at the Shuemu heaven again, only to see Shu Xiaoman leading countless people closer and closer to the exit. Suddenly, Shu Xiaoman shouted, "Everyone, leave the ancient realm." Swish. 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 Although many people of the Shuemu heaven were unwilling, and even the big birds and insects were complaining, no one refuted Shu Xiaoman's words. Because before they came, Shu Xiaoman had been designated as one of the leaders of the ancient realm this time. It was not because Shu Xiaoman was strong, but mainly to cooperate with Han Fei. At the moment when Shu Xiaoman shouted to leave the ancient realm, Han Fei shouted, "Everyone, leave the ancient realm." Someone was shocked. What happened? Why did they leave the ancient realm? Chu Feng received Yang Ruoyan's message and immediately shouted, "Everyone, fight for the exit." Then Chu Feng looked at Han Fei. "Fish Dragon King, you and I should work together. Otherwise, the Shuemu heaven will block the exit, and we will be the ones to suffer in the end. Right at this moment, Han Fei glanced into the distance with obvious surprise. Huh? You're not dead? The newcomers were naturally Yu Keiling and Lan Shuer. Although Han Fei had long known that they were peeping at him from a distance, he still had to show his surprise. Yu Keiling called out, Master Dragon King. Lan Shuer gritted her teeth. She hated the Fish Dragon King to the core. However, because of their different identities, she had no choice but to grit her teeth and call out, Master Dragon King. Lan Shuer no longer had the feeling of relying on a big shot. In the Fish Dragon King's eyes, she was even less than a chess piece. Sure enough, Sister Keiling was right. It was better to rely on oneself than on others. With the Fish Dragon King's arrogance, he certainly wouldn't humble himself and apologize to Lan Shuer. Han Fei grunted softly and said casually, go get the exit. After that, Han Fei turned his head, looked at Chu Feng who was rushing to the entrance, and then looked at Yang Ruoyun. When Yang Ruoyun saw Han Fei looking at her, her heart tightened. This person, although he looked fierce and silly on the surface, he was actually very cunning. However, after working with Han Fei for a short time, Yang Ruoyun's view of Han Fei had completely changed. She just felt that this person didn't act according to common sense. She didn't know what his purpose was at all. His mind was unfathomable. Even if he used flowery words, it would be difficult to move him. Han Fei glanced at her with a faint smile and said without disguise, aren't you the traitor who just cooperated with me to kill the blood demon? Ha ha ha, you're quite pretty. If you can't stay in the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, you can consider following me. Han Fei's words were directly imprinted in the hearts of many people. On the sea demon's side, many people heard it. Many people were surprised. The Fish Dragon King actually used the blood demon. Lan Shuer's face darkened. Sure enough, no man is good. Han Fei openly said that he cooperated with Yang Ruoyun. The latter was about to refute, but then she thought it was wrong. She thought that Han Fei said this to prove that he was innocent and afraid that she would use this to frame him. However, because Han Fei expressed it so straightforwardly, it showed that Han Fei didn't care about her life or death at all and was only using her. Immediately, Yang Ruoyun shouted coldly, Fish Dragon King, I will avenge you someday. Han Fei grinned. Clownfish, you want to take revenge on me? Who do you think you are? At this time, when the tide of immortal insects was less than 800 kilometers away, some fast immortal birds had already rushed over. At this time, a large number of sea demons and blood demons who went to look for opportunities alone also rushed over. A sea demon shouted, Master Dragon King, go quickly. The tide of immortal insects is coming. A blood demon squeaked, come on, fight for the entrance. When a large number of sea demons and blood demons began to gather at the entrance, Han Fei saw that the sea demons hadn't broken through the defense line of the Waterwood Heaven and there were still blood demons attacking from behind, so he immediately shouted, can't you even fight for an entrance? Get out of the way and let me do it. Shu Xiaoman had been waiting for Han Fei to come, but Han Fei had been dawdling, standing there bragging or teasing some blood demons. It was not until the rest of the sea demons and blood demons had basically gathered and a large number of immortal birds had rushed over that he said he would fight for the entrance. Young Shu Man had already been ready. She shouted, no more fighting. Everyone, don't guard. Open the entrance and let them fight for it themselves. Han Fei scolded, humph, timid as a crab. Everyone, guard the entrance and block the exit for me. However, when Han Fei rushed to the exit with the sea demons, half of the sea demons had already run away after the creatures of the Waterwood Heaven. Yu Keiling said to her via voice transmission, Shui, if you have a chance, just run away. The Fish Dragon King is too conceited. He will only send us to our deaths. Lan Shui nodded. I know. I won't guard the exit with him. Han Fei even heard someone's voice transmission, is this Fish Dragon King out of his mind? Why does he still want to fight at the moment of life and death? Someone was speechless. Ignore him. Stay close to the exit. Once you find it impossible, just leave. Anyway, after we go out, he can't kill us in front of so many strong masters. Han Fei listened to the voice transmission of these sea demons, his face full of disdain. Han Fei blocked with his spear. I want to point my spear at the sea of blood and kill 100 more people. Chapter 1247. The countless blood demons were dumbfounded. Is this guy out of his mind? We have more than 500 people, and you're blocking the exit with more than 200 people. Can you stop us? Seeing this, Yukaling couldn't help but roll her eyes. However, in the end, she still reminded him, Master Dragon King, don't be impulsive. We don't have enough people. Han Fei turned around and glared at her. I'll never be schemed against. Han Fei glanced at the blood demons and shouted, tell me, who schemed against me? If she comes out to die, I won't make things difficult for you. A particularly enormous Millennium Snapper suddenly turned into a glamorous, red-haired woman. This person pointed at Han Fei. Are you the Fish Dragon King? I'd like to see what makes a heavenly talent from the Baibei Royal City who ranks 10th on the heavenly talent list yelling here. Chu Feng said to her via voice transmission, don't underestimate this person. This person is so strong that even the cursed demonic fish can't do anything to him. The woman called frowned. She had just arrived. Hearing that Han Fei was so strong, she was slightly alarmed. However, how scared was she? Not much. At this moment, for the blood demons whose souls were generally strong, they could already perceive the black tide of immortal insects. From the sea to the sky, it was dark and covered more than 300 meters thick, like a shocking gray and black wave. At this moment, they had no time to think anymore. Because if they didn't rush out now, it would be too late. If they were really covered by the tide of immortal insects, it would be impossible for them to come out alive. When the number reached an extreme, no matter how weak the tide of immortal insects was, it couldn't be underestimated. Of course, no one would underestimate this tide of immortal insects. Hua shouted, kill them all. Red leaf saber, explode. Swish. Swish. The red leaves in the sky were all like the leaf knife wheels of the big red trunk. When Han Fei heard the woman shouting to explode, his eyes slightly narrowed. This woman must be the real leader of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City this time, right? The leaf knife wheels were still divine weapons no matter how weak they were. Moreover, these people were all at the peak of the sea spirit realm. They had long been trying to improve their strength and the quality of their weapons. Therefore, there were only a few low-grade divine armament saber wheels here, and the rest were all mid-grade and above. Among them, high-grade divine weapons accounted for at least 1/10 of them. Roar! Han Fei's spear shot out like a dragon. A water dragon surged out, and a soul-shaking dragon roar resounded. Kill! Instead of retreating, Han Fei took a step forward and charged at the Millennium Snappers and women in red who were squeaking. Behind Han Fei, many people's faces changed drastically. Is this fucking Fish Dragon King crazy? In such a situation, you're really going to rush up? The undying insect tide is about to arrive, aren't you afraid? The moment Han Fei took action, more than a dozen people in the crowd followed him. They felt that if they made a move now, they would definitely leave a deep impression on the Dragon King. Of course, even if they took action, they just blocked the exit and didn't attack the blood demon's formation like Han Fei did. Swish! The spear in Han Fei's hand trembled, and a green-spotted conch companion spirit blocked in front of Han Fei, trying to block. Unfortunately, no one expected that Han Fei's strength was so strong. The green-spotted conch was directly pierced through with a big hole. Monkey King 3000 strikes. Bam! 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 Han Fei rushed into the crowd of blood demons alone, and the woman named Fire shouted, the rest of you, charge. I'll deal with this one. Fire body. However, Hua-er's body suddenly began to burn with fiery red flames. It was as if he was a fire spirit that did not have a physical body. Except for two sapphire-like eyes, this fire elf had no lower body, and her tail was like a wisp of smoke that drilled out of the mouth of a kettle. The fire demon's arms were like awls, and in the blink of an eye, thousands of thorn shadows shot out. Bam! 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 As soon as the two sides met, Han Fei defeated almost all the cone shadows. The final blow blew up her flaming body. And then, a lot of flames that dissipated in the void reassembled on the other side and turned into a human again. Han Fei grinned. My flame is my body. Interesting. Han Fei said, I can't kill you in a short time. Is it the same for the others? However, when Han Fei turned his head, he found that there were only about 100 sea demons left. At that time, Han Fei cursed, bastards, a bunch of cowards. How can you become sea spirits? Yu Keiling and Lan Shui were among the people who disappeared. In Yu Keiling's words, the Ichthyosaur king had treated everyone as him, and was constantly seeking death. She finally knew why the fish dragon king was thrown out of the outer sea to gain experience. He was the one who had brought this upon himself. The rest of the sea demons, seeing that there were only about 100 people on their side, couldn't resist the charge of more than 500 people. After all, at this critical moment, all the blood demons had rushed over. In terms of numbers, they were all here. At that time, all the sea demons retreated. Fire sneered. What's the point of being strong? Look, no one will accompany you to die for your own selfish desires. Han Fei grinned. Ha, only in this way can I show my unparalleled bravery. Kill. The crazier Han Fei was, the more speechless Fire and the others were. Didn't we just ambush you? So, you can't be ambushed by others? When most of the sea demons passed by Han Fei and Fire who were fighting, Han Fei said in his heart, Old turtle, I'm going to kill this woman. If anything happens, remember to cover for me. Swish. Just when Horror felt that Han Fei couldn't kill her, she didn't have a good impression of Han Fei in her heart. She thought that Han Fei was just a brute. However, when most of the blood demons had fled to the exit and the tide of immortal insects was only 100 kilometers away, Han Fei roared angrily, shaking Fire's soul. Chu Feng's face changed drastically and she shouted, Fish Dragon King, are you courting death? If you don't run now, no one will be able to escape. Han Fei grinned. Who can stop me, Fish Dragon King? This woman should be the strongest person in your Blood Sea Divine Wood City, right? I'm definitely going to kill her. Qi Lu. Seeing that Fire was frozen and couldn't recover, Chu Feng knew that she must be injured. In order to save her companions, Chu Feng took out a very special weapon, which looked like a mass of blood. Chu Feng shouted, Since you want to die, you'll never come out. Fire, it's up to you. In Han Fei's eyes, information emerged. Name, Bloody Visceral Thunder. Introduction, a corrosive thunder made of the blood of the Blood Sea Divine Wood and Lightning. It contains strange poison. Once ordinary people touch it, their meridians, flesh, energy, and soul will be corroded, and they will eventually become a pool of dirty blood. Quality: a high-quality divine weapon. Soul attachment: a none. Effect: a corruption, corrosion, recastable, unrefined. Or remark: the range of the explosion is 8,000 meters. Fire, who had just come back to himself, screamed, Chu Feng, do you want me to die? The moment Chu Feng threw out the bloody visceral thunder, she thought to herself, it's not a loss to trade you for the Fish Dragon King. Bam! At the moment when the bloody visceral thunder burst out, Chu Feng stepped into the exit. And Han Fei and Fire were faced with the bloody visceral thunder in front and the tide of insects behind. In Chu Feng's view, there was no hope of survival at all. At the moment Chu Feng went out, the space in front of Han Fei was twisted, and he had already appeared in the swarm of insects 8,000 meters away. And Fire still had a body of flames. However, at the moment when the bloody visceral thunder burst out, a lot of black threads appeared in the flames. Ah! As soon as the swarm of insects rushed over, many undead creatures began to melt rapidly after entering the bloody visceral thunder, turning into a mass of dirty water. There were also some insects and birds who didn't have time to go out and were rushing to the exit. Seeing this scene, they shouted, "Go around and get out of this area." When the insect race and the sky race left as well, the crazed insect swarm suddenly came to a halt. Han Fei was standing leisurely on the back of a beetle. The water deity's voice echoed casually, "What's your purpose in creating a hostile relationship between yourself and those blood demons?" Han Fei said with a bitter smile, "I can't fight the Shuemu heaven, so I can only fight the blood demons." The water deity said, "As long as you know what you're doing. Remember, you must find a way to find my real body as soon as possible. You only have 100 years. Han Fei's lips twitched. "Master, I'm only in my early 20s. The water deity spat. "Pretentious. You've already lived for 50 years in the Age of Doom. Go." The outside world was already a mess. Under normal circumstances, nobody would come out until the end of the third day of the opening of the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. But all of a sudden, a large group of people rushed out of the entrance with a swoosh. Immediately, the experts of the Shuemu Heaven, the Baibei Royal City, and the Blood Sea Divine Wood were all surprised. "What's going on? Why are all the people of the Shuemu Heaven out?" Someone said in surprise, "What's going on? It's been less than a day, and it's already over." A human explorer exclaimed, "Hiss! What happened in there?" A sea demon venerable glanced around. 628, so many died in one day. The sea demons and the blood demon experts were all surprised. The probability of death was as high as 40%. And it had only been less than a day. If they stayed here for 3 days, wouldn't they all be killed? Wushang Shui stepped out of the void, glanced around, and said, "Be quiet. Young man, what's going on?" Young man said solemnly, "Greetings, Venerable Snow. The Fish Dragon King of the Baibei Royal City has gone mad." The Fish Dragon King had gone mad? Immediately, Prime Minister Turtle Gui Sanqing, who had been following the fish dragon, changed his expression, but he didn't say anything. After all, they were from the Shuemu Heaven. They wouldn't answer even if he asked. But then, after only a few seconds, a group of sea demons rushed out. However, there were only a little more than 500 of them. Immediately, someone shouted, "What's going on? Where are they?" First update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1248. It was obvious that something was wrong. The venerables of the Baibei Royal City were greatly shocked. Almost 2,000 people went in, and only 500 came out. More importantly, it was only one day. Are you kidding me? Gui Sanqing glanced around and immediately pointed at Yu Keiling and Lan Shui, saying, "Why did you two come out first? Where is young Master Dragon King?" Lan Shui's body was slightly stiffened, but Yu Keiling said calmly, "Master Dragon King is on a killing spree inside." Yu Keiling was right. Han Fei was indeed on a killing spree inside. Gui Sanqing's face turned cold. "Young Master Dragon King is still inside. Why did you two come out first?" Yu Keiling said, "Master, we came out because we couldn't do anything even if we were inside. A super large tide of immortal insects broke out in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. We couldn't resist such a terrifying natural disaster at all." A tide of immortal insects. Instantly, everybody looked at Yu Keiling. A venerable asked, "Tell me, where did the tide of immortal insects come from on the first day?" Yu Keiling bowed apologetically. "Master, I really don't know. We were ambushed by blood demons the moment we entered the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm. Almost all the attendants of Master Dragon King died in the battle, and we were separated from Master Dragon King. The two of us were separated from the Dragon King because of this. This should be the reason why the Dragon King is fighting the blood demon." Yes, Yu Keiling and Lan Shui didn't know about the 9 sounds of the Great Path. Only the Blood Sea Divine Wood City was good at killing people with music. Only their incantations were a field that everyone was completely unfamiliar with. Immediately, Gui Sanqing and the venerables of the Baibei Royal City all looked at the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. One of the twin sisters of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City roared, "It's normal for them to ambush each other." Who knew that the 10th expert on the heavenly talent ranking of the Baibei Royal City would be so vulnerable? Humph. It was a fair battle. Every time, it would usually be the White Shell Royal City's side that won. This time was an exception. Another person roared, "Who else is inside? Where's Yu Hong?" A clam girl looked awful. "Where's Shui Hongyan? Could it be that he's defending against the Fish Dragon King inside?" Not waiting for Yu Kaling and the others to answer, an insect shouted from the Shuemu heaven's side, "They must be dead, your sea demons are almost gone." A bug echoed, "Yes, they were all eaten by the big red fish. Those big red fish are really fierce." A bird pecked the bug with its beak. "What big red fish?" "It's a blood demon." Swish swish swish, on Shuemu Tian's side, Buggy and the big bird had just finished messing around. As soon as the sea demon finished tasting it, she was about to question it when she saw a group of Millennium Snappers rush out of the ancient realm. The blood demons seemed to be very good at transforming, especially in the form of fish when they were running away. The twin venerables from the Blood Sea Sacred Wood City looked at each other, and their expressions changed. One of them said, 591 people. Why are there only so few people left? Chu Feng, is there anyone else? However, Chu Feng's expression was unsightly. Lord Xueran, the others. I'm afraid they have all perished. Hiss. Shui Ran and Shui Qin were stunned for a moment. Did this mean that there were only a few dozen more survivors than the White Shell Royal City? Shui Qin asked, "Where's Fire? Could it be that he has also fallen?" Chu Feng gnashed her teeth and said, "Just now, Fire stopped the Fish Dragon King of the White Shell Royal City to give everyone a chance to escape." At this moment. As she spoke, Chu Feng looked at the entrance. However, as soon as she said that, she saw swishing sounds. Nearly 100 bugs and dozens of big birds quickly rushed out of the entrance. A big bug shouted, "Wow! That's terrifying! What is that bloody mist? Can it even melt the undead creatures?" A big bird shouted, "Fortunately, I flew a little slower, or I would have been hit." The half-mermaid venerables looked awful. What a great Shuemu Tian. The probability of death is only about 20%. A bug buzzed, "I'm so angry." A bug muttered, "Who asked them to snatch the opportunity? Whoever tries to snatch such a great opportunity will die." Another bug muttered, "Fortunately, we met them, BAM." Before the bug finished, Shu Xiaoman kicked its head. "Shut up, all of you." It had to be said that the insects were all big mouths. His IQ was even higher than that of the war giants. He almost spilled out Han Fei's secret. Wushang Shui smiled, looked at the entrance again, and asked, "Are there any survivors inside?" The bug that just rushed out said, "I saw a man with a red spear go into the tide of bugs. He's hopeless." A big bird said, "I saw a man on fire. He seemed to have gone into the tide of bugs too." A sea demon said, "It's the Dragon King. When we came out, the Dragon King was still fighting the blood demon." Chu Feng was secretly relieved to hear that both of them had fallen into the tide of bugs. Suddenly, she glanced at Yang Ruoyan, and her eyes turned cold. There was no such thing as "don't wash your dirty linen in public." Chu Feng said bluntly, "Lord Xueran, Lord Shuqin, Yang Ruoyan conspired with the White Shell Royal City's Fish Dragon King to kill our Blood Sea Divine Wood City's experts. By the time I found out, there were probably no less than 100 of our clansmen who died in their hands." Huh? The Flower Sisters' faces immediately turned cold, and they immediately stared at Yang Ruoyan unkindly. How could they tolerate this? In the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, they could fight however they wanted. However, how could they tolerate this kind of behavior in the outside world? Yang Ruoyan seemed to have known that she would be exposed. At this moment, she was extremely calm and her brain was working fast. She said, "Venerables, Chu Feng only saw one side of the matter and didn't see the other side. When this matter is over, Ruoyun will definitely give a reasonable answer. It's just that. It's not convenient to talk about this matter now. Chu Feng's eyes immediately turned cold. She had seen it with her own eyes. And more than one person had seen it. Do you have any reason to refute this? She saw clearly that Yang Ruoyun was vicious and ruthless to her clansmen. No matter how Yang Ruoyun explained, she wanted this person to die. Xueran snorted, and Yang Ruoyun suddenly knelt on the sea and vomited 3 mouthfuls of blood. Xueran said ruthlessly, no matter what the reason is, you must be severely punished for killing your clansmen. Let's see how you explain yourself in the future. The venerables from the Baibei royal city, however, were a little surprised. The Fish Dragon King had always thought highly of itself. Why would it cooperate with the Blood Demon? On the Shuemu Heaven's side, Wusheng Shui couldn't help but think, is it the Fish Dragon King? Or is it Han Fei? She had already found out from Jing that it was impossible for the Fish Dragon King to survive as long as Han Fei was there. So, the person in the Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm right now was actually Han Fei, right? Wusheng Shui said to Jing who was hiding in the void and eating hot pot, stop eating. What a scandal. Jing really came out after being called many times. When she came out, there was still a bit of grease on the corner of her mouth. Jing glanced around. I didn't expect that this trip to the 1,000-year ancient realm would end so soon. Young man, did you get anything from this trip? Young man bowed slightly. Emissary Jing, this trip was quite hasty. Except for the unusual movements in the mountains and the outbreak of the immortal insects, we didn't really get many treasures. Jing said carelessly, oh. Is that so? Then, was it the unusual movements in the mountains that swallowed those sea demons, or the insect tide that ate them? Young man nodded. Both. However, when the mountain moved, there was a terrifying mist. No one who entered could come out. It was precisely because of this that so many people had fallen in a single day. Some people from our Shuemu heaven also disappeared in the mist. The people from the Baibei royal city and the Blood Sea Divine Wood city were stunned. The people who came out just now didn't say anything about the unusual movements in the mountains or the man-eating mist. Jing said lazily, look, the reason why so many people from your 2 sides died has been revealed. You must be too greedy and don't have the safety awareness of our Shuemu heaven. Let's go. Venerable Xue Qin said coldly, it's not 3 days yet. Since you said that some people were lost in it, there might be a way to get out. Swish. Just as Xue Qin finished speaking, a figure flashed by the entrance. Everyone turned to look at Zhang Xian. The first thing they saw was a ball of flames. The newcomer was bathed in flames. When they took a closer look, they found that the Fish Dragon King of the Baibei royal city was covered in blood. He was holding a spear in his left hand and holding the neck of fire, the heavenly talent of the Blood Sea Divine Wood city, in the air. At that moment, the whole audience was silent. This final scene seemed to have a hint of blood and desolation. Lan Shuer turned her head away. This bastard is powerful, but he's too disgusting. Young man's eyes flickered. If he remembered correctly, the heavenly talents of the sea demons and the Blood Sea Divine Wood city had all been defeated by Han Fei. She couldn't help but think, Yin Yang Heaven? What kind of place is the Yin Yang Heaven? Could it be that that place was watered by blood and the flames of war? Kacha! Han Fei threw fire to the sea demon camp, only to see him say fiercely, I thought the so-called heavenly talents of the Blood Sea Divine Wood city were powerful. I didn't expect that they were no match for me. After that, Han Fei tilted his head, glanced at the blood demon, and said fiercely, how dare you ambush me? This is the price. After that, Han Fei looked at the venerables on his side, and then at the followers of Yu Hong and Shui Hongyan. Han Fei grinned. No need to wait. Shui Hongyan has been killed by me. He has already been fed to the worms. I haven't met that bastard Yu Hong. However, since he hasn't come out, I'm afraid he won't be able to come out. Yu Keiling looked complicated. For some reason, she felt that although this fish dragon king was still arrogant, he seemed to be more domineering than the previous fish dragon king. It was overbearing in the truest sense of the word. It was not just overbearing that came out from his mouth. However, Yu Kailing didn't doubt it. After all, she didn't know much about the fish dragon king. Gui Sanqing, who seemed to be the guardian of the fish dragon king, was looking at Han Fei with a smile. Han Fei then raised his chin proudly at him and said in his heart, "Old turtle, has this little turtle been killed by you?" Second update. Asking for votes, end of this chapter. Chapter 1249. Han Fei left Thousand Mountain Ancient Realm as the fish dragon king. Strong and domineering. One raised his eyebrow while the other tilted his head. The height of his chin was extremely consistent with the arrogant look of the Ichthyosaur king in the past. However, no matter how well he imitated her, he wasn't the real one. Especially those who were very familiar with the Ichthyosaur king, such as Gui Sanqing, who was half a venerable, he needed to be dealt with as soon as possible. In his mind, the old tortoise's voice spoke, "I'm currently devouring Yuan Dao's soul vessel, it will take around 4 more hours." Han Fei was speechless. It only takes a short while for them to possess someone's body. You, a dignified emperor, have been seizing the body for more than a day and you still haven't finished? Roar, the old turtle said angrily, "What do you know? Was this a normal possession?" This was a possession without anyone noticing. I've only given out a little bit of my will, so the difficulty is many times higher than normal possession. Moreover, this king still needs to absorb this person's soul and control his body, combat skills, law enforcement abilities, and various great daos. Do you think that it's over just by snatching a body? The old tortoise's words made sense. Although the old turtle was only temporarily using Yuandao's body. But he still had to learn it. Otherwise, if he were to be exposed, he would be finished. Young Master Dragon King, both of you are elites of Royal City. Isn't it a little too much for you to say that young Master Red Flame died in your hands? A clam girl stood out. She was already middle-aged and her face was ashen. Han Fei smiled disdainfully. What do you want? Are you going to denounce me? Han Fei arrogantly glanced at the clam girl from the corner of his eyes. Then, he walked towards Hua Er step by step and even kicked him. Although this person's strength is not weak, he is still not the person who ambushed me. I knew that there must be a top heavenly talent hiding among the blood demons. Heh. If you have the ability, then don't ever show it off. Otherwise, I will find you sooner or later. As he spoke, he glanced at Chu Feng and the other blood demons. When he glanced at Yang Ruoyun, he purposely paused for 2 more seconds before looking at the others. Yang Ruoyun really wanted to twist Han Fei's head off at this moment. Although Han Fei's eyes only stayed on his body for 2 more seconds, he was still shocked. Just 1 more glance and he didn't know how much he would have to explain. Besides, Yang Ruoyun wanted to make a fuss about Han Fei killing his clansmen. However, Han Fei was too straightforward. He straightforwardly stated that he had killed another heavenly talent of the Baibei Royal City. Moreover, he acted as if it was only natural. He didn't even bat an eyelid when he killed a top prodigy from the White Shell Kingdom. So what if he killed a few ordinary half-mermen? Of course, Han Fei mentioned the top heavenly talent who ambushed him several times, which made Yang Ruoyun's heart skip a beat. If the Ichthyosaur king could kill Little Flame, wouldn't the blood demon that ambushed her be even stronger? More importantly, was there really such a person? Was it possible for a single person to ambush a group of people like Han Fei? Also, the Ichthyosaur king seemed to be targeting the Blood Sea Divine Wood City. Yes. From the very beginning, the Ichthyosaur king had been very targeted. What if there was no such person? If everything was fabricated by the Ichthyosaur king, then what was his motive? At this moment, Yang Ruoyun was shocked. This Ichthyosaur king was far more cunning than he showed. Fake, it must be fake. If there really was such a strong master on her side, there was no reason for him to hide. She had to become such a top heavenly talent in order to survive today's disaster. However, the ichthyosaur king was really strong, and she was still far from it. Chu Feng and the others looked at Han Fei in a different way again. Although they were very angry at Han Fei's contemptuous eyes, they really couldn't beat him. In their eyes, this ichthyosaur king was really strong. Therefore, they couldn't blame him for being so conceited and arrogant. However, Gue Sanqing frowned slightly and said to Han Fei via voice transmission, "Young master." Han Fei understood what Gue Sanqing meant. Gue Sanqing was reminding him not to be too arrogant. Han Fei snorted and walked back to his camp step by step. Because Han Fei didn't know the closed distance technique, he could only walk. Of course, when he walked, Han Fei's eyes fell on Lan Shuer and Yu Keiling, and he snorted softly. Just when everyone's eyes fell on Han Fei, Jing was secretly sweating in her heart. Isn't his acting too good? Just looking at his arrogant and conceited posture, I want to go up and kick him. On the other side, Shui Ran and Venerable Shui Qin of the Blood Sea Divine Wood City, after hearing Han Fei's words, both glanced at the heavenly talents in front of them. Could it be that among these people, there was a top heavenly talent that even they hadn't discovered? It was also at this moment that the kneeling Yang Ruoyan seemed to be concealing her aura. This made them a little confused. With your little strength, why are you concealing yourself? Shui Qin giggled. The ichthyosaur king of the Baibei royal city is not bad. I'll remember this name. When Shui Qin talked about him, Han Fei tilted his head and glanced at her, the corners of his mouth unconsciously curling up. Even in the face of a venerable, he still had a trace of arrogance. His expression was very annoying, as if saying, "So what if you remember me?" When he returned to Gue Sanqing's side, Han Fei preemptively said to him via voice transmission, "Let's talk about it later." While talking, Han Fei secretly activated the supreme token in Forge the Universe. Seeing that Jing subconsciously glanced at him, he quickly looked back at her. Of course, Gue Sanqing didn't think that the Fish Dragon King could communicate with the venerables of other families under his nose. Although he had a lot of doubts, young Master Dragon King said that he would talk about it later. Obviously, he couldn't say anything at this moment. That was why he had to wait. However, Han Fei said in his heart, "Old turtle, I've bought you some time." The old turtle said, "You Wendao can't show up anymore. You have to trick this turtle out alone and avoid the venerable's eyes." Han Fei wanted to vomit blood, thinking, how the fuck can I avoid the venerable's eyes? After reaching the venerable realm, Han Fei once suspected that he could perceive things as far as 10,000 kilometers or even farther. Although, no one had ever said so. However, judging from their looks as if they knew everything and could see everything, it was hard to believe that their perception couldn't be as far as 10,000 kilometers. Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Come on, tell me, how can I avoid the venerable? As long as he pays attention to me, how can I disappear from his sight?" The old turtle sneered. "Do you think that the venerable's perception range is very wide? That he can even clearly know everything within tens of thousands of kilometers?" Han Fei asked rhetorically, "Isn't it?" The old turtle sneered. "No one can control everything, not even a king. Do you think he has nothing to do and will go to see what you do every day?" Han Fei muttered, "It's because I'm too dazzling now." The old turtle despised him. "No matter how dazzling you are just a peak-level sea spirit. Let me tell you, the perception of a venerable can indeed be very far. But that's perception, not coverage. It's the same as your perception now. You just need to reduce your sense of existence. No one will stare at you for no reason. After all, you have a half-venerable guarding you." Han Fei thought to himself, "That's right. As long as I'm not omniscient, it's fine." Han Fei couldn't help but think, my junior sister, the Life Queen, is very powerful. She found that I had mixed in with the sea demons without even looking. However, I wonder if the Life Queen knows that I am her senior brother. If she knows that my senior brother is only a junior explorer, will she slap me to death? Or throw a lot of awesome resources at me? Jing was the first to become impatient. "Law enforcers, go back. There's nothing for you to do here. The experts of the two royal cities naturally refused to leave. After all, their losses this time were too great. 70% of the heavenly talents died in a mere 1,000-mountain ancient realm, which was twice the number before. They couldn't believe that so many heavenly talents were swallowed by a cloud of mist. A half-mermaid venerable looked at Han Fei. "Dragon King, have you ever encountered the mountain mist that can swallow people?" Han Fei shook his head. "No. I've been fighting a blood demon whose identity I don't know. From the beginning to the end, I didn't even go to a mountain." The venerable one grunted and said impatiently, "See spirit realm cultivators, go back." On the Blood Sea Divine Wood City's side, Xueran said casually, "Take Yang Ruoyan back for interrogation." Han Fei glanced at Gue Sanqing. "Let's go." 100 seconds after leaving the entrance of the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, Han Fei changed directions and separated from the team. Gue Sanqing asked, "Young master, are we not going back to the Ice God Gorge?" Han Fei said solemnly, "No. Let's go first. I'll tell you later." Seeing Han Fei's weird expression, Gue Sanqing didn't ask further. He guessed that something must have happened to Han Fei. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left the team so eagerly. Half an hour later, Gue Sanqing said again, "Young master, I don't think anyone will notice us now." Han Fei secretly pinched his fingers and didn't find anything wrong. He then said solemnly, "I feel that my Dragon King bloodline is about to be awakened. I need to find a safe place to cultivate in seclusion." "Huh?" Gue Sanqing was puzzled. "Young master, hasn't the Dragon King bloodline been awakened a long time ago?" Han Fei thought of something. "No, I'm talking about the second awakening. Although I was ambushed, I felt that the bloodline in my body was restless. There seemed to be something wrong." Gue Sanqing was refreshed. "No wonder I felt that young Master Dragon King was a bit weird. Was the Dragon King bloodline going to be awakened for the second time?" Although he had never heard of such a thing as a bloodline, could there be a second awakening? However, in the world of heavenly talents, who could understand it? Just because he hadn't seen it didn't mean it didn't exist. Who dared to neglect it? Immediately, Gue Sanqing said solemnly, "Young master, then shouldn't we go back to the Ice God Gorge to awaken?" Han Fei shook his head. "No, this is my trump card. I can't let others know it. Sanqing, although I'm conceited, I'm not stupid. What if I awaken the strongest bloodline? How many of those guys can tolerate me? Sanqing, you're the only one I can trust now." Gue Sanqing took a deep breath and said with a red face, "Young master, Sanqing is willing to sacrifice my life for young master." Chapter 1250. Han Fei could still fool Gue Sanqing temporarily. As long as the old turtle controlled Yuan Dao to arrive, it would be fine. After he was at least 200,000 kilometers away from the 1,000-mountain ancient realm, Han Fei found a trench at the bottom of the sea and crawled into it. 2 hours later. In Han Fei's heart, the old turtle's voice rang out, "I'm coming. I need your soul-shocking roar to cooperate with me. Leave the rest to this empress." Han Fei was pretending to practice the demon god scripture, making the demonic energy vortexes around him constantly. Han Fei hurriedly said, "Hurry up, I can't pretend anymore." In this world, the simplest attack was a sneak attack. Only the kind of unexpected sneak attack was the most difficult to avoid. Although Han Fei should be able to stop Gue Sanqing if he attacked directly. However, that would definitely make Gue Sanqing somewhat wary. Han Fei activated the Beast King art. Although Han Fei was definitely not familiar with real dragons, it was not a big problem for him to transform. Unfortunately, when he was in the 100,000 mountains, there was a creature that looked like a dragon, called the Titan Python. Unfortunately, that guy was too lazy. There were too many creatures in the 100,000 mountains, so Han Fei didn't learn from it. But no matter what, Han Fei's body suddenly began to change. Gue Sanqing had been guarding him. Suddenly seeing Han Fei's body grow longer and a large number of scales appear on his body, he was a little surprised. Is this the second awakening? However, Han Fei's body quickly changed, and in the blink of an eye, a five-clawed golden dragon appeared in front of Gue Sanqing. Wow! Gue Sanqing was dumbfounded. Is this the real power of my young master's bloodline? This is the legendary dragon clan. Huh! Suddenly, there was an earth-shaking dragon roar, like the roar of 100 beasts. The soul-suppressing roar of 100 beasts directly exploded in the ears of the defenseless Gue Sanqing, making his head buzz. But at this moment, Han Fei launched the sacrificing punch with all his strength. Han Fei didn't care whether he would break this turtle or not. If a semi-venerable could be broken by his punch, it wouldn't be a semi-venerable at all. Besides, this was a turtle. A tortoise carries a shell on its back every day. Even a fool would know that its defense is very strong. Buzz! A huge wave of fist shadows enveloped the tortoise. Following this, the rift was torn apart and Yu Wendao appeared. At that moment, Yu Dao, who had been possessed by the old tortoise, pressed his hand on the tortoise's shell. At that moment, an incomparably huge black tortoise shell came down and pinned Gue Sanqing to the ground. Seeing this scene, Han Fei exclaimed, "Oh, old turtle, you're really something. Summoning a turtle shell out of thin air and suppressing a half-venerable." The old tortoise snapped, "What are you doing? I have my own methods." This wasn't a tortoise shell. This was the tortoise shell heaven sealing technique. Once I use this technique, I can silently and directly take down this person. No one will be able to see this. With my Daoist aura, even a monarch wouldn't be able to see what's happening here. Han Fei curled his lips and said, "Hee hee. Just say that you still have hidden strength." Roar! Bang! At this moment, Gue Sanqing realized that he had been tricked. What the fuck is the second bloodline awakening? This is not the young master of the Dragon King at all. The question is, when was the young master of the Dragon King replaced? When did Yu Wendao go wrong? This doesn't make sense. Gue Sanqing was struggling at this moment, looking at the fish Dragon King, who had turned back into a human form and was talking and laughing, only to tremble all over. Even though he was bleeding from all his orifices and felt that his soul was being torn apart, he couldn't help but roar, "Who the hell are you?" Han Fei raised his chin. "Me? I am the fish Dragon King." In the face of such a half-venerable creature, Han Fei certainly couldn't reveal his true identity. Even now, he seemed to be in an absolutely safe state. The old tortoise cackled. "You are too curious. Why do you talk so much nonsense when you are about to die? It's the glory of your life for me to use your body." Gue Sanqing growled and tried to self-destruct. However, the old tortoise pressed his tortoise shell with one hand and his head with the other. Han Fei only saw that the blue soul fire was abruptly pulled out by a black mist. Of course, Han Fei knew that it was the soul, but he was surprised that the old tortoise was already so strong. The soul of a half-venerable was pulled out so easily. In Han Fei's heart, the old tortoise said, "It's not that I can easily crush a half-venerable now, but because it and I are both tortoises. If I hadn't lost my Tao, I could have made him kneel on the ground with just a thought, unable to move." Han Fei snorted. "Stop bragging. You're bragging so much. Anyway, in the end, it's so troublesome to kill a half-venerable and I have to cooperate with you." About 10 minutes later, in Gue Sanqing's soul, the screams gradually disappeared, and the soul turned into spots of blue light and was directly swallowed by the old tortoise. The surface of Yu Wendao's body seemed to become illusory, and a large amount of black gas was also sucked into Gue Sanqing's body. If it weren't for the fact that Han Fei was very familiar with the old tortoise, he would definitely think this was an evil technique when he saw such a weird scene. However, it did seem to be an evil technique. After another 10 minutes, Yu Wendao's body suddenly softened and he lay on the ground. Gue Sanqing suddenly opened his eyes, and his pupils were pitch black, but soon returned to normal. Gue Sanqing roared at the sky and grinned, "I've finally regained my freedom. I'm out." Han Fei looked at the old tortoise as if looking at a fool and curled his lips. Hey, Hey, don't howl. You don't even have a Tao now. You're only a half venerable now. Even I can't kill you. What can you do after coming out? Han Fei didn't lie. He and the old tortoise couldn't absolutely trust each other yet. However, Han Fei knew very well that when he exerted his full strength, although he couldn't beat a half venerable, he might be able to run away. Besides, in terms of physique alone, Han Fei was confident that even a half venerable might not be able to match him. With this, why should he be afraid? Ah! The old tortoise's face immediately turned cold. Even if I don't have a Tao, I can still cultivate again. In only 10 years, I can improve the bloodline of this little turtle by a level, and its strength will be several times stronger. Han Fei murmured, 10 years. Maybe I'll become a king. You're still a half venerable. You're really weak. The old tortoise bared his teeth and said fiercely, what do you know? I'm just laying the foundation and setting up a Tao. If it weren't for the fact that this little turtle's bloodline is too poor, I would have become a venerable in 10 days and a half venerable in 100 days. Believe it or not. Han Fei curled his lips. Go away, stop bragging. Don't be so cocky just because you have one more body. If you encounter a venerable, you'll be killed with a slap. By the way, what about this Yuan Dao? The old tortoise seemed to find it difficult to talk to Han Fei. He was happy to be reborn and didn't want to quarrel with Han Fei. At this moment, the old tortoise glanced at Yuan Dao and said contemptuously, this is a piece of trash. His Dao has reached a certain level. He was originally an underwater human, and his body was almost the same as that of a human, but he had the talents of a sea demon. However, his body was destroyed by himself. Now, his soul has been shattered by me. Although he didn't die, he can't survive more than 3 days. Han Fei took a breath. What about his resources? The old tortoise couldn't help but raise a sun-moon shell and said, they're all spiritual springs, spiritual fruits, demonic stones, mineral veins, and various deductions. I'll give them to you if you want. However, can you cast a heavenly awakening divine technique on my new body? Ha, impossible. Han Fei said contemptuously, my lifespan and vitality have just been replenished. Do you want them? Who are you? The old tortoise was speechless. This little turtle has internal injuries, and its spiritual heritage is not high, only level 6. In terms of internal injuries, it's about the same as a level 5 demonic heritage. How about this, I teach you the great puppet technique, and you cast a heavenly awakening divine technique on me. You only need 100 years of vitality. Han Fei shook his head. That won't do. Find a Tao-seeking state demon and swallow it yourself. The old tortoise said angrily, even if I swallow it myself, it won't have the effect of the heavenly awakening divine technique. Han Fei raised his eyebrows. Then give me the resources first. Then you can catch a Tao-seeking state demon yourself. I'll give you as many years as I swallow it. The old tortoise was dumbfounded. You didn't even blink when you spent 2,000 years in the ancient realm. You still don't want to spend 100 years with me? Han Fei sneered. That's my teacher. Who are you? If it weren't for the restriction of the contract, maybe we would still be enemies. The old tortoise said with a black face, I am an emperor. Han Fei interrupted him. What opportunities can you give me? My teacher even wants to give me his original body world. What can you give me? The old tortoise roared, my Tao has been taken by you to make meridians. Han Fei snorted. That was taken by the gourd, not by me. That's a different matter. If you have the ability, ask the gourd for it. The old tortoise rolled his eyes and said, do you know that after I teach you the great puppet technique, you can refine this Yuan Dao into a puppet? Can't a semi-venerable puppet compare to your 100 years of vitality? The point is, you can also suck it back from others. Han Fei also thought quickly. Is it really that awesome? Han Fei changed the topic. Okay, that's fine. However, the stronger you are, the more dangerous I am. I can't keep a thread around, so I have to pay more. The old tortoise seemed to see through Han Fei's idea. This guy actually doesn't care about the so-called 100 years of vitality at all. He's just raising the price. The old tortoise said tiredly, tell me. 2 semi-venerable resources and 1 great puppet technique. What else do you want? Han Fei knew very well that in the eyes of different people, the value was often different. For example, if the old tortoise really disliked Gue Sanqing's body, would he possess it? Even if he did, he would at most use it temporarily and wouldn't spend much time on Gue Sanqing, for example, this Yu Wen Dao. At best, it was equivalent to an adapter. Then he was already a semi-venerable. Why did the old tortoise look down on him? Han Fei thought about it and immediately grinned. Simple. Teach me the most powerful technique. The old tortoise rolled his eyes and said, I knew it wouldn't be a good thing. However, you have already mastered the apocalyptic divine technique. Haven't you found the problem? Han Fei wondered, what problem? The old tortoise said, in the end, combat skills are attached to the Tao. Therefore, there is no so-called strongest combat skill at all. I have never seen the so-called strongest Tao. When you become a Taoist, this combat skill will definitely become your strongest combat skill. Han Fei thought, is that so? Forget it. However, he had made the conditions and the old tortoise had agreed. How could he not ask for anything? Chapter 1251. Faced with Han Fei's bargaining, the old turtle said, okay, you just want resources. You can have the sun-moon shells of Yu Wen Dao and Gue Sanqing. To be honest, I don't like them either. However, you should need more than me. Han Fei couldn't help asking, what do you have? The old turtle said, I have 2 million caddies of spiritual spring. There are a lot of other things. You can deal with them yourself. Han Fei's eyes lit up. 2 million caddies of spiritual spring, that's 2 billion points of spiritual energy, right? Damn it, is money coming in so fast these days? Once upon a time, he was worried about a few points of spiritual energy, but now he was talking about hundreds of millions. Sure enough, he had to find powerful people to fight. These people all had a lot of resources. The old turtle sneered. When you become a venerable, you will find that spiritual energy is everywhere in the world. But then you will know why you can't wake up a king even if you throw billions of points of spiritual energy. After all, spiritual energy is something for mortals. Once you become a king, it will be a leap in life level. You won't understand. Han Fei chuckled. I will understand. Han Fei's heart did a flip. It must be the chaotic qi. The immeasurable fruit was said to contain a trace of chaotic qi. However, during the tribulation, this energy fruit should have been unconsciously absorbed by him, and he didn't see any chaotic qi coming out. Forget it, I'll ask for it later. Anyway, the Life Queen is my junior sister. Isn't it natural for a senior brother to ask for something from his junior sister? Of course, Han Fei was too weak now, so he didn't want to embarrass himself. Anyway, the demon purification pot was still eating spiritual energy, but the amount it ate was getting bigger and bigger. In the future, what kind of high-level energy to feed the demon purification pot was a matter for the future. Now, as long as it could be fed with spiritual energy, it would be fine. Han Fei said, okay, I can also cast the Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique on you. But, shouldn't we find a safe and secluded place to hide? Otherwise, as soon as the Heavenly Awakening Divine Technique is cast, a beam of light will fall from the sky, and we will be exposed, won't we? The old turtle said, no need to be so troublesome. Why do you think I spent so much effort to create this turtle shell sky sealing technique? There was a price to pay. It was forcefully executed with a small portion of Yu Wen Dao's life force. I will only seal this place for 3 days and 3 nights, so that the outside world will not notice. Han Fei's eyelids twitched. That's awesome. Can I learn it? The old turtle sneered. The turtle race's secret arts require a person's constitution. First of all, you need a shell. If you go find a turtle to possess, this emperor doesn't mind teaching you. Forget it then. Han Fei still took the 2 sun moon shells. It couldn't be helped. His current level wasn't high enough, and he didn't need to be that high. A small favor of 2 billion yuan was enough to move him. He also needed to save up some resources. Although the water deity had said that as long as he could find her within 100 years, it would be fine. However, he couldn't even see the future of the Shuemu sky in the next 3 years. Who knew what would happen in 100 years? So, where was the real body of the water immortal? This was something that needed to be solved urgently, unless they really couldn't find it. However, even if he found it, he would still need a huge amount of resources to replenish the spiritual energy and life force of the water immortal for tens of thousands of years. The heavenly awakening divine art descended again, and Han Fei found that there was no more beam of light to the sky. The beam of light was only 100 meters high, as if shot out from the void, and directly shone on the old turtle. In his heart, the old turtle said, "This is not light, this is the aura of the Tao. So, where it appears can be controlled." As for the techniques, that's the difference between those who have entered the Tao and those who haven't. If you've entered the Tao, how to use the heavenly awakening divine art depends on your mood. Han Fei watched Gue Sanqing's body slowly grow a little taller. There were some strange lines printed on the tortoise shell. However, they soon disappeared. Han Fei felt that his vitality was almost the same as 100 years, so he immediately stopped the heavenly awakening divine art. The old turtle muttered, "Actually, it doesn't matter if you give me a little more. Anyway, there will be plenty of opportunities to hunt Tao-seeking state powerhouses in the future. Your vitality will eventually be made up." Han Fei nodded. "Then let's talk about it when it's made up. How much did the heavenly awakening divine art heal?" Han Fei didn't know. But he thought, anyway, 100 years of vitality shouldn't be a lot. After all, when he wanted to wake up the water fairy, it took him nearly 2,000 years of vitality. Even then, he had to rely on the spring of life and more than 1 billion spiritual energy to wake up the water fairy. Gue Sanqing said, "Sure enough, the heavenly awakening divine art directly completely recovered 80% of the foundation damage left by this little turtle. I think if you are confident that you can always be invincible, in fact, you shouldn't be weak on the heavenly awakening path. At least, this path has been confirmed. The road to becoming a king has already been stronger than 99% of the people in this world." Han Fei curled his lips. "Humph. Don't talk nonsense. Give me the great puppet technique." The old turtle took out a jade slip casually, pinched it with one hand, and quickly injected spiritual energy into it. After only 1 second, a technique jade slip was formed and was thrown to Han Fei. The old turtle said, "The great puppet technique has extremely high requirements for refining. Why do you have to be at least a venerable to practice this great puppet technique?" "One of the reasons is the limitation of refining. Only when you reach the venerable realm can you learn things extremely fast. When you reach the pioneer sea realm, it will be even faster. Of course, your refining skills are not bad. You should be able to use it." Han Fei took the great puppet technique and didn't care. He was thinking about a question. What are there so many puppets in the Immortal Palace for? Whether it is the Yin-Yang Palace or the Waterwood Immortal Palace, there are many puppets. And under the steps into the sea, what's the difference between refining puppets and raising puppets? Han Fei scanned with his perception and information popped up in his mind. Great puppet technique, venerable level, low quality, introduction. The method of refining puppets uses the power of heaven to destroy the soul of a living being before it completely dies and scatter it into the flesh and blood of the body. With the method of refining, the law is the source, and a wisp of one's own soul is integrated to reforge a spiritless body. After the puppet is refined, a wisp of the soul will become an ownerless soul and will have a telepathic connection after the refining. Deduced art, dragon raising technique. Deduction cost, 1 billion. Note, it needs to be refined when the body has not decayed and the soul has not completely dissipated. Han Fei had never seen such a technique before. And it was a venerable level, low quality one. It could be seen that puppets were actually rarer than he thought. Although the void lines could control living beings and turn them into their puppets, the void lines could not be used to control living beings. However, that required the void lines to control them all the time. And this great puppet technique didn't seem to need him to control it at all. It only needed a wisp of his soul. Why would Han Fei care about this? It was just a wisp of his soul. As long as he killed a few enemies, he could make up for the lost soul. Looking at the 1 billion points of spiritual energy and the dragon-raising technique, Han Fei couldn't help but be curious. The steps into the sea should be the puppet-raising technique, right? Han Fei couldn't help but say, "Old Yuan, I know this puppet technique. But I've seen a technique to suppress corpses. Is that also refining corpses?" The old turtle was feeling his new body. Hearing Han Fei's question, he said, "You're talking about the puppet-raising technique, which is much more advanced than the great puppet technique. With the great puppet technique, you can only refine puppets without consciousness. No matter how powerful this puppet is, it can't be more powerful than its original body. However, the puppet-raising technique is different. It completely purifies the soul in the creature's body and makes ownerless souls appear in the creature's mind. In the end, as long as you want, you can develop the puppet in any direction you want. Some people even raise this kind of puppet, possess it, and directly refine it into an external incarnation." "Huh?" Han Fei exclaimed, "External incarnation?" The old turtle said, "Of course. When you raise this kind of puppet to a certain extent, it will already have consciousness. Even if their masters wanted to possess them, they would still resist. Because at that time, it will be equivalent to an independent creature." Seeing that Han Fei was lost in thought, the old turtle couldn't help but chuckle. Some people do this dirty thing because they are not strong enough. They would specifically look for people with outstanding talent, kill them before they could grow up, and slowly nurture their corpses. In the end, I'll be able to replace him, and it'll be enough to raise my level of existence to a whole new level. Han Fei twitched the corner of his mouth. "You're really shameless." The old turtle said disdainfully, "That's nothing. If it weren't for the fact that the conditions for raising a puppet are very harsh and the chances of raising a powerful puppet are very small, this technique would have long been popular in the world." Han Fei licked the corner of his mouth. "It sounds awesome. But forget it." Even the old turtle, who always bragged, said it was difficult. It must not be simple. As for the puppet under the steps into the sea, forget it, I'd better wait until I become stronger. Immediately, Han Fei began to observe the great puppet technique. Even if this Yuan Dao was useless to the old turtle, it was at least half a venerable. If it was refined into a puppet, he would really be invincible among the explorers.